Be able to use my body.
Really? I don't know. I'll ask you once the show starts. And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, March 29th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. Repping the brand today, too. Didn't even know about it. Got a 10-game NBA slate here for us today. Fun week then. 2 games tomorrow and 13 on Friday. That should be a real treat for everybody. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, what's going on?
Not much, man. Glad to have you back. Glad to be doing a show with you. Glad you survived Vegas.
Interesting. That is not the way that I would have expected you to say that. Didn't think you would say that you're glad to have me back. That's wild. How bad was it without me?
You caught me off guard. That seemed like a good thing to say.
Fair enough. The compliment was really weird. It might be the first one I've gotten on the show. So interesting here. What's going on, everybody in chat? Should be good. Usman said starting early today. Yeah, we got 10 games. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to break down. We got the Grizzlies throwing a bit of a wrench into the slate a little bit earlier. Didn't see that one coming. But we'll break it all down in a little bit. How was it while I was gone? Anything interesting?
No, I don't think so. More NBA just being stupid. I don't know. I'm excited for baseball to start tomorrow.
I would have been if circumstances were slightly different, but I obviously did not do any of the prep that I had needed to do over the past few days to be ready. So I'm going to try to get ready to just, jam the main slate for tomorrow and call it a day.
I will build anything I need to build between tomorrow's strategy show and first pitch.
Yeah, that sounds pretty likely to me. Only a 2-game NBA slate tomorrow, so everything that we do in the morning should be pretty easy. That should help. But for now, it's still basketball time. 10 games. Are you ready to get started?
I am.
The Milwaukee Bucks, sizable favorites here in Indiana, 11.5 points. In fact, 237 total. I lost my tab. Look, I'm going to be terrible at this. Like, even worse than Laffy was to start the show today.
That was rough. Maybe that's why I just complimented you out of instinct, was because it wasn't this morning.
He was just not very good at his job. I heard the beginning of it. I had to shut it off. It was terrible. And I'm shocked that they even leave him do shows. Anyway, for Milwaukee, Jrue Holiday available, Giannis available. We've got Q tags on Chris Middleton, Q tag on Joe Ingles, no Jay Crowder. Dragic is available. Myers Leonard is not. I'd say let's start with the big question here, but I don't think any of this really matters. My assumption is that Chris Middleton is playing. Do you even care if he does?
I care if he does, because if he doesn't, it does make a $7,300 Jrue Holiday look better. It also makes Giannis look somewhat better as well, but Giannis is kind of Giannis. You're happy to get to him if you can, with or without Middleton. But that price tag on Holiday is pretty cheap. And if Middleton's in, this is a slate where, this is a late March slate where you have a lot of just clear good plays on shorthanded teams. So Holiday is playable if Middleton's in at that price. But if he's out, it certainly makes him look a little bit better. I don't think he ends up being a priority either way, but I do think that you can kind of just take advantage of that price tag a little bit more if Middleton sits.
How are you feeling about the Middleton situation? It is the first game, so I guess it doesn't really matter, but I just assume he sits today and plays tomorrow against the Celtics.
That seems like a reasonable assumption. I haven't given it too much thought. I always get confused. I never know what to think when they list somebody as questionable with injury management, because you're just making the decision on if they play or not. So make the decision.
Agreed. I have no idea. He has to know by now, right?
You would think. It's not like assuming that he's not going to be allowed to play the back-to-back no matter what. It's not like he's warming up and saying, oh, I feel great, let me go. Yeah. They're just saying yes or no to him playing today versus tomorrow.
Especially in a 11-point line against the Pacers. There's no gamesmanship in this particular matchup. If it were two, if it was Celtics and Sixers back-to-back, maybe you hang that out there until 6:30 just to make it a little bit worse for the other team. This one doesn't matter at all.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. But I never know what to do with situations like that. But yeah, it is the first game of the night, so not too concerned about it.
Okay. How do you feel about Giannis here? 11-6 power forward center eligibility. Pulling 11% ownership, but to me feels kind of difficult to get to.
Yeah, I'm happy to get there if you can. There is going to be plenty of value on this slate in terms of underpriced players, but you also have a lot of pay-up options on this slate. We do have, Embiid questionable. If he's out, then it makes Giannis a little bit easier to get to, just because you're losing one of those other pay-up guys. But happy to get there if I can. There's just also a lot of other really good plays.
How much Jrue do you want if Middleton is out?
I expect right now we have him with Middleton projected in. We have Jrue with a 3% chance or 3% ownership, 4% chance of being optimal. If Middleton's out, I assume that becomes a 7 or 8% chance of being optimal and 5 or 6% ownership. Still not a lot, just a little bit more.
Okay. Is there anything else here for Milwaukee? Brook Lopez, anyone? It doesn't seem like there's anybody else.
Lopez is fine, but the thing with him at 7K, I wouldn't talk anybody off of it. If you want to play Brook Lopez, cool. There's a lot of centers in that price range that are getting similar, 2% ownership that have very high ceilings. He's not the first one I would go to, but he is similar. You have him, you have Walker Kessler, you have, at least based on the ownership from this morning, you have Kessler, you have Gobert. You had Şengün. There's a lot of guys in that range that are, I think, pretty similar plays.
1.3 fantasy points per minute over the last 30 days for Brook Lopez.
He has been playing out of his mind.
I know. It's kind of crazy. 7K price tag is a big price tag for Brook Lopez, but if he's playing like that, it doesn't seem to matter at all.
Yeah, had him on both of my best ball teams, and going in, it was kind of just this is not somebody I expect to necessarily even be in my actual lineup. Or on the team where he was my number one center. This is a weak spot. And other than him sitting for a game, which was really annoying, he was a bright spot.
Yeah, you would not have expected that. On the opposite side, we've got the Pacers. They look a little bit different today. No Tyrese Halliburton, no Buddy Hield, Q tag on Miles Turner. Let's talk about the big one because Jordan Nwora currently projected for 27% ownership. Everybody else here for the Pacers is single digits at best. Let's just start with it. How do you feel about Nwora? Does that look good to you? What do you want to do with him?
Yeah, I think Nwora looks fine. He's played well in general for Indiana. We got him in the starting lineup last game against Dallas. He played 31 minutes. Wasn't in the closing lineup of that one, but I expect the closing lineup for Indiana just to be volatile. Just because he didn't close that game doesn't mean he's not closing this one. This is a team that kind of can just do whatever the hell they want, but still reasonably priced. On DraftKings coming in at 5,200, small forward, power forward. So probably going a little bit over owned, but I think also a strong value play.
Okay. What's your expectation for minutes here?
I think call it like 30 to 32. Know that there's a chance he plays a little bit more.
Okay. That'll work. How are you handling Turner? Because I think he looks pretty good at 6,600 if he's in, but who knows?
Yeah, I think he looks interesting if he's in. I would certainly throw him into that mix with those other 7K guys that I already alluded to. Even if he's in, I don't think he becomes like a slam dunk play or anything. There's a couple of very clear top center plays, but certainly wouldn't mind getting there. And then if he's out, you get to play the really fun game of Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith or neither. They did both get a little bit more expensive. We had Jalen Smith start the last game. You still got 24 minutes apiece. Smith didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. Smith would be the guy that I go to first because he has power forward eligibility, especially if he's starting. If he's coming off the bench, it becomes a little bit closer, a little bit dicier. But if Turner's out there, it does at least become a chance that one of those guys ends up having a big game for you.
You're assuming you would go 24-24 on those guys if Turner's out?
Something like that. I mean, I think you could go like 25-23 in favor of whoever's starting, but
that's fair. What about the rest of these guys? Nembhard, Mathurin, Nesmith, McConnell. Is there anything else interesting for Indiana, given the fact that they're pretty sizable dogs?
Not really. I mean, Mathurin looks okay at 5,600. I assume he'll start and play a bunch of minutes. McConnell always looks okay without Halliburton, but at 6K on this particular slate, it's not the same level of priority that he's been on a lot of other slates.
Mathurin's interesting to me because he has been straight ass as of late, and I don't totally know how to project him for today. He looks really good to me, given the positionality, given the price tag, and I think given the 7% ownership, I'm intrigued by him. But if he's going to continue to be a 0.62 guy like he has been over the past 30 days, I am significantly less interested. That is not how I have him projected today. So I'm certainly interested probably more in Mathurin than anybody else. I'm surprised to see McConnell getting 8%, but that's just McConnell, I guess.
Yeah, it's just, you're getting 28-ish minutes from him, a little over fantasy point per minute. He's fine.
Yeah. I've got nothing else here for Indiana.
Me neither.
We go to Houston, another team that stinks. They are also 11-point underdogs, this time in Brooklyn, 228 total. Houston's, though, they're at full strength. Everybody that's normally available is available. The highest owned guy for Houston is 6.4% owned Alperen Sengun. Porter, Jalen Green, not really owned. Do you find yourself wanting to get to anything from Houston?
I like them in tournaments. We've been saying this about Houston for a while now. They're risky to get to because they're typically really big underdogs, and that's the case again today. Double-digit dogs at Brooklyn, but they're playing huge minutes for their starters when games are competitive. Even in the last game where you didn't get the final few minutes of the fourth quarter, you got big minutes from these guys, and the fact that they do get blown out often enough keeps their price tags in check. So if you get a competitive game here, Sengun is underpriced, Porter is underpriced, Green is underpriced, Martin and Smith, are probably a little underpriced as well. But those first three in particular, if the game blows out and they only play 33 minutes, yeah, they're probably not going to end up being great plays, especially if they're getting blown out. It increases the chances that they weren't playing well. But if this game's competitive to the end and you end up getting 37 minutes from a 6% owned Kevin Porter Jr. at 7,400 or a 3% owned Jalen Green at 7K or a 6% owned Sengun at 6,700, I guess my point is if you knew the final score of this game was like Brooklyn by 5, these guys would all probably be twice as popular as they are.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, well, I mean, look, we've got this Milwaukee game at 11.5. We've got Houston at 11. We've got Detroit basically as 10-point dogs. Sacramento as 14-point favorites against Portland. One of those teams probably, one of those double-digit dogs probably wins outright today.
Right.
And kind of if you can get that piece correct, you're getting a really nice leg up on the field. which is also gross to think about that like one of these teams is going to gag it away. I mean, the Pistons are 9.5-point dogs against the Thunder, and they don't have SGA, which is just that tells you how bad the Pistons are. But
yeah. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with Houston is like some of these other teams that are big dogs, like Portland, for example. Obviously, we're going to be playing guys from Portland just because they're shorthanded. But even in a close game, I can't tell you who's closing for Portland. Like, no. Who knows? But in a close game for Houston, I can tell you who's closing.
Yep. Yeah, this one's pretty easy. That's for sure. Anything else for the Rockets?
Nope.
All right, we'll take it over to the Brooklyn side. This one's a little bit different. They are getting some love here. Mikal Bridges at 7,600, shooting guard only. He's pulling about 20% ownership. Spencer Dinwiddie, 7,600, point guard only, pulling about 20% ownership. And then we're getting Nick Claxton at 7K, pulling about 10. Add him to the list of centers that are in this range. But how are you feeling here about Bridges and Dinwiddie?
I think they look really good at these prices. We've seen their ownership come down a little bit since this morning, just because we got Memphis news, we got other stuff opening up, but really good matchup. Dinwiddie's salaries dropped like $1,000. I think he was probably overpriced before, especially relative to Bridges when you had that $800 or so gap, but that's come back now. They project very similarly. We have Bridges and Dinwiddie both between 40 and 41 DraftKings points. That's a solid projection at their respective salaries. So I think they look good. Claxton at 7K looks good, pulling 10% ownership. There are a lot of centers in that range and a lot of good centers overall. So that's why you're not seeing more ownership to Claxton. And I think you certainly can make the case where, if Claxton's going to be 10% owned and all of these other guys, whether it's Turner or Kessler or Gobert or whoever, Şengün, are going to be 2 or 3, then sure, Claxton's going over owned relative to them. But it's still not like 10% is a lot of ownership.
Why is Spencer Dinwiddie 19% owned and Jrue Holiday isn't?
Yeah, good question. I mean, the matchup, like I guess the Houston matchup's a little bit better probably, but
237 total for the Milwaukee one, 228 for Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's just surprising to me. Like I don't see those guys as all that different. Drew's got an even better price tag. Probably not going to get the same kind of ownership that Dinwiddie gets, unless that Middleton news comes out really early. But I find them an interesting comparison point.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a good call. Like, I don't know, especially the gap you're getting. It's like 20-2.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like that's sizable. And I can make a case that I like Jrue more than I like Dinwiddie, just not even looking at the ownership.
Yeah, I mean, 1.08 DraftKings points per minute for Dinwiddie since he joined Brooklyn. Jrue's, around the same thing.
Yeah. Just interesting. That's all. I want to point it out. Anybody else here for Brooklyn? What do you want to do with like Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith? Do you want to try to figure out anything else this stupid rotation's doing?
1.16, by the way, this year for Jrue in games that Middleton and Giannis have played. Granted, that includes games where Middleton was coming off the bench, but
sure.
No, I mean, I think those are the 3 main guys. Cameron Johnson would be the 4th guy I go to at 5,900. Certainly has upside in this spot. We've seen Daron Sharp getting the backup center minutes behind Claxton, but this does not strike me as a slate where I really need to be going to backup centers.
No, if I got to do that, then it's not going to be one of those winners for me.
Yeah.
I'm still fascinated by Bridges. I'm pretty excited to see whatever next year looks like for him.
Like as a player, you mean?
Yeah. I'm having my trouble wrapping my head around it. I don't know what Brooklyn does to change this team. Like the Simmons piece is just wild, but
620 minutes played since he joined Brooklyn, 62.7% true shooting on 28% usage.
Yeah, do the Suns are the Suns looking at this thinking like, we know that he falls back down, or what the hell did we do?
That's what I was about to say. Are they looking at this like, yeah, we knew this, we knew he could do this, or are they looking at this going like, oh shit, what did we do?
Yeah, that's scary, man, because he's on a good deal right now too.
Yeah,
good stuff. Good pull for Brooklyn on that one. I've got nothing else here. I certainly don't want to be talking about all of the other slop. It's Bridges, it's Dinwiddie, it's Claxton, but pay attention to that Dinwiddie-Jrue Holiday relationship. Then let's move it on to the Miami Heat. 4.5-point underdogs in New York, 224 total. We got a lot to wait on here. Q tag on Gabe Vincent, Q tag on Kyle Lowry. probable tag on Jimmy Butler, but who the hell knows if that matters, because it certainly didn't matter yesterday from what I understand. 13% ownership coming into Tyler Hero at 6,500. When you look at Miami right now, are you starting with Hero?
Yeah, he's the one that just is at the closest thing that we have to a broken price tag. 6,500 for all of the minutes he plays is just going to be appealing. Butler is probable. I assume he plays. He was probable at one point yesterday too. But you just are getting a really cheap price tag on Hero for his playing time.
Yeah, I think that ownership all looks pretty reasonable. Does the Vincent Lowry status really matter to you unless they're both out?
Not unless they're both out. If you get Vincent in, Lowry out, which was what we expected earlier today, then you're getting some minutes for Strus and Martin, more minutes. But on this slate, I don't think it really matters. If you get them both out, maybe it gets interesting. Probably still doesn't, but because the problem is, like, it's opening up minutes, but you still have enough people in this rotation. I mean, we saw Duncan Robinson get minutes yesterday. You have Oladipo, who can play some minutes off the bench. I still don't necessarily think that anything really opens up even if they're both out, unless you were to also get Jimmy Butler out.
How you feeling about someone like Bam here, 7,700? Price tag seems solid enough. The minutes are certainly there, but I don't know. He's just it's become underwhelming.
Yeah, it's sort of just another decent center in that price range. Clearly he's a lot better without Butler, but we're expecting Butler to play.
Yeah. It's crazy how that like mid-6 to mid-7 type range of centers is just fully loaded on a slate like today.
Yeah.
I assume he'll smash because this is one of those days where I don't have all of the Bam Adebayo. Do you like Butler at all at 8,700?
Not really on this slate.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty similar to Bam, where like if you get there, cool. We actually haven't projected to go a little bit over or under owned, probably because of, I guess, the probable tag. I don't really know. We have a 13% chance of being optimal, 7% ownership, but I wouldn't be surprised if that optimal percentage just comes down a bit because it seems kind of high given how many just clear cut good plays are on this slate.
Yeah, I very rarely get to Jimmy Butler either way, but it seems like a close to impossibility on a day like today. I got nothing else here for the Heat.
Me neither.
We'll go to the Knicks. Not a lot of ownership here coming into the Knicks, and we are waiting on the piece that is getting the ownership. Jalen Brunson is questionable for today. He is 7,500 though, 9% owned. I think he looks like the best option if he's in. I'm a little nervous that they might mute his minutes just slightly if he plays, but there's really no telling. He has missed the previous 2 games. Do you see yourself getting to anything from New York?
I don't think anything looks great. I do think if Brunson's in, he looks fine. I do have similar concerns as you do. When we saw him miss some time not very long ago, he came back, played 32, 37, 37 minutes. So I don't expect him to be significantly limited. But on this slate, if he plays 32 minutes, I don't really want him. If he plays 37, then obviously he's a pretty appealing option. So if he's in, he's fine. I wouldn't go crazy with him. I think there's certainly better plays, but still a decent price tag on him. If he's out, you have 7,800 on Quickly, which is fine. It's not the same 6,500 that it was last slate. And I do think it's worth noting that we now have 3 of the last 4 games that Brunson was out where Quickly's played 34 minutes or less. 2 games ago, you got the 41-minute game where Miles McBride only played 6 minutes. But other than that one, in each of the last 4 games, excluding 2 games ago, you've gotten actual rotation minutes from Miles McBride in both halves. And as a result, you've gotten like 31, 34, and then what would have been 34 had there not been garbage time from Quickly. So that does concern me a little bit in addition to the rising price tag.
Why is Jalen Brunson with a Q tag 9% owned and Drew Holiday isn't?
I don't know.
I'm going to do this a lot. So
I'm liking Drew in tournaments more and more as we talk about this.
Yeah, it's the first thing that stood out to me when I was breaking down the slate. And I was just like, man, something doesn't add up here. Now, that said, I assume we'll do some sort of update in ownership later and he'll get up to like 9 or 10% and everything that we think for right now goes away. But for right now, it stands out to me. I have to talk about it. Does Quentin Grimes just score like 100 fantasy points today?
I mean, I assume so. I'm not going to play him, but probably.
Yeah. Anything from the centers? Mitchell Robinson at 4,600, whose minutes have been, a roller coaster. Anything here?
It's tough to get there. Like anytime he's this cheap, you kind of consider it just because of the block upside. But there's so many centers I like on this slate that it's tough.
I'd like to talk more about the New York Knicks or the Miami Heat, but they're the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat, and it's not the mid-90s, so I've got nothing else.
Yep, same.
Hit that like button, folks. 1,200 people in the door. 140 likes so far. We can get that number up quite a bit. We've got NBA Live Before Lock coming up after this from 6 until 7:30, but we don't stop there for tonight. PGA Live Before Lock going on from 8 to 9. So we got 2 more live shows for you, plus plenty of other content. If you're just simply bored, we've got this channel, we've got the Odd Shopper channel, we've got the golf channel as well. You can watch so much content if you want to. But the other big thing that we need to talk about, baseball's back. And I'm actually a little bit excited for it. It won't be something that I'm covering anytime soon just because of basketball, but at some point in time I will. And Adam and I have talked about how covering baseball is fun because it's easy and makes our day-to-day lives significantly more simple to operate. You don't have to just sit at your computer all day. You can get up and go about your business. Well, we've got a promo for the MLB being back, and that promo is MLB is back. 50% off your monthly Stokastic Platinum subscription. This gets you access to everything we have to offer: projections, ownership, the lineup generator, the boom bust tool. Now, it doesn't include Pick'em Pro or Bet Pro, anything like that. This will run until April 2nd, so be aware of that. This is good for new customers and existing customers. You can see it on the screen right now. Great graphic, by the way. Love our graphics team. Fantastic work as of late. If you want to play MLB, and I think you should, it's a very different DFS sport than NBA. Very, very different. And to me, like, sometimes more fun because you can really take some shots on some garbage and you can plant a flag, whereas harder to do that on the NBA end. Do you like NBA or MLB more if you're just playing DFS?
Oh, I wasn't listening to you. Do I like NBA or MLB more if I'm playing DFS?
Yeah.
Kind of hate them both. I like NBA more at the beginning of the season, and at the end of the season, I like MLB more.
There you go. Yeah, we've got like the top pitchers tool, top stacks tool, top batters tool. I mean, we have the advanced tools that we have for baseball are massive for the prep that we do. So I want you guys to get behind the paywall. Come check out everything we have to offer. We're going to Dallas now. Mavs are 4-point dogs in Philadelphia, 232 total. This one's weird for me. I want the Mavs to win because I like Luka to succeed, but at the same time, I need Philly to win so that I can win my Sixers versus Cavs bet. So it's an interesting balance for right now. I haven't enjoyed Harden getting not playing for a couple games. That hasn't helped. For Dallas, the highest owned guy on the team is 2.9% owned, 12K Luka Doncic. No one else is above a percentage point. To me, no one else should be. I don't even really see how you can get to Luka with any sort of confidence other than he's just simply Luka. What do you do here?
No, that's how I see it as well. Like, I have a crunch running right now. So not sorted or anything, but Luka's showing up in like 4% of the lineups I build. Kyrie's showing up in like 2% of the lineups I build. Clearly, those guys are fine if you get to them just based on who they are and the ceilings they give you, but very, very difficult to get to since they're both in and they are not really priced for the other one to be in.
No, this one's wild to me. Like, they need it more than anything, but I mean, it's are you surprised to see Luka maintain this price tag?
Yeah,
all of this time that Kyrie has been here.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that Kyrie kind of came and then went and then came back. But yeah, I am surprised because I think that you should just be getting like an 11K-ish Luka instead of 12K.
Yeah, like he's close to impossible to play. I mean, like right out of the gate, it's just so much easier to want to roster Giannis.
Yeah, well, not only that, like when you talk about the point guards too, like you have John Morant without teammates, you have Dinwiddie, you have Giddey without SGA, you have Hero at a cheap price tag, you have an underpriced De'Aaron Fox. Like there's so many. You have the Spurs missing half their team. There's just so many good point guard plays that are nowhere near him in price.
I'd love to talk more here. I mean, there's not even like a pitch for Bullock or Hardaway or Maxey if he happens. If Maxey ends up being out, can that open anything up for you? Do you start thinking about someone
you got to call him my last name when Dallas is playing Philly?
That's fair. Maxey Kleber.
I don't think it changes too much from a DFS standpoint. Like
Okay.
maybe Dwight Powell or Wood play more, but they're both center only. I don't expect enough minutes from Wood at 6K for me to want to play him at center on this slate.
I'm with you.
And you could very easily just get one of the other random bigs thrown into the rotation.
Yeah, I saw Monday they played 15 dudes.
Yeah,
even the mascot Theo Pinson.
Yeah, like granted, 4 of them were only in garbage time in the fourth quarter, but in the first half, you got at least 5 minutes from 11 different guys.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Do you think Jason Kidd's the coach of the Mavs next year?
Hadn't given it any thought, but no, probably not. I don't know, like, because I actually think I think he's improved from when he was in Milwaukee.
What's he supposed to do with this roster?
What'd you say?
What's he supposed to do with this roster?
But I think the thing that kind of the reason I initially said no is just that the Kyrie experiment has been such a massive failure so far, and that's like getting your Luka and Kyrie's to gel and not lose basketball games is sort of a really big part of, I think, being a professional coach. Is like fair. Managing, those types of guys.
A fair point, I guess. I can't really disagree all that much. They are, so they've played 306 minutes alongside of each other so far. They are plus 33 in those minutes. So plus 33 over 633 possessions. So they're plus 5. It's probably a bit of a letdown, honestly, but I don't know what else you do with this team. Like, obviously, it's not the smartest trade in the world, and they're probably regretting not having someone like Dorian Finney-Smith still, but, like, it's not a great roster.
No, it's not.
What's the take here? McGee is going to have to play. Nope. When's the last time you think JaVale McGee played? Hold on. Is it at least 20 minutes?
Yeah, at least 20 minutes.
Was it the first week of the season?
Probably when he was still the starter. He played 13 minutes last game with no Kleba. Dwight Powell is not worse than JaVale McGee either.
I'm not even sure he can play 20 minutes.
Right.
I think the best you're going to get out of him is 4 5-minute things, but the more likely scenario is that man is not going to play today.
I mean, I think the best you're going to get out of him is what you saw last game.
Yeah, I agree. You're going to need a lot more injuries than that for him to get up to 20. Alrighty, let's kick it on over to Philly, a team that will be difficult to talk about, but most of this is pretty easy. Q tag on James Harden, Q tag on Joel Embiid. Harden's 5% owned, Embiid is 11% owned. No one else is owned, but the status of those two guys will create some sort of trickle-down effect. If they're both in, you can certainly get away from Tyrese Maxey at 8,900, that's for sure. I like Embiid at 11K if he is in. He should nuke this Dallas team.
Yeah, I like Embiid quite a bit if he's in. The only problem is just that you have such a strong mid-range of centers, but you do have plenty of value at other positions. You can certainly afford Embiid if you want to. Right now, we have him projected for about 11% ownership. He's showing up in around 13% of the lineups I build. So I think that ownership is more or less where it should be. But they don't have an answer. And the thing to keep in mind, I mentioned it this morning, nobody has an answer for Embiid. So I think, and we've been seeing it a lot recently just on our shows and like in chat, I think it tends to get a little bit overstated, like, oh, there's nobody that can defend the center. Like, teams double, teams do things. Like, there's no guy that's just matching up with Joel Embiid and you're expecting him to have success. But the Mavs sure as hell don't have anything close to that, and he should just dominate this front court.
Particularly on a day where, like, they want to win. He probably is not happy about all the chirping from Monday and sitting. Like, he's the type of guy that cares. Right. So I think this is a great spot for him if he is in. I'm going to be very happy to get to him. What do you want to do with Harden here at 9,600 if he happens to play today?
I think I like Harden more than I like Kyrie or Luka, but I think that they're pretty similar in that it's tough to really prioritize Harden here. He, like I said, I like him a little bit more than the other two, but I think they're similar in that if you're playing him, it's not because like he is a particularly strong value at his price relative to other guards on the slate, but you're playing him because like it's James Harden playing against a terrible Dallas defense, and he can obviously just go nuts. Don't know if he'll be limited. I tend to assume that whenever Harden plays, he's not, because he just normally isn't. I assume once they bring him back, he's just good to go. But obviously, if you get him on a minutes limit, then I'm not paying 9,600 for him.
What if they're both out again like they were on Monday? What do we do with this Philly team?
Yeah, I mean, that opens stuff up. Like, I'm not expecting that, but it would open some stuff up. You've seen prices adjust, though. So, like, it's still going to be tough to pay 8,900 for Maxey. You can do it if they're both out. You know, he's going to play big minutes and be the entire offense, basically, but still a very healthy price tag. Harris is up to 6,400. Melton's up to 6,100. Paul Reed's up to 4,200. So certainly not as much value as we had the other day. You could still take shots on those guys in tournaments, but I wouldn't expect anybody, even if they're out, to end up looking like true priorities here just because prices already moved.
I can't believe Maxey's 8,900, but I guess that's what happens when Harden's out for 4 games.
Yeah.
Anything else we should be touching on here for Philly?
I don't think so. I kind of view this game as, like, assuming Embiid and Harden are in, as Luka, Kyrie, Embiid, Harden, all fine in tournaments. I prefer the Philly side, but, you know, still just very similar, like high upside, expensive plays, and then I kind of just pretend nobody else exists.
Yeah, that seems pretty easy to do. Let's go to Los Angeles. Lakers are 2.5-point favorites in Chicago, 227 total. We got LeBron James back on Sunday, played 29.5 minutes. There is no ownership coming into this team. 3% to AD, under 1% to everybody else. This is a really crazy slate where nothing really looks good. It looked so bad when I did the process show earlier this morning, where I was just like, there's no value here. There's no value here. There's no value here. And I did it for every single team until I got to Portland. I was like, it took till the final team of the final of all of it for me to finally get to what I needed to get to. What do you see here for the Lakers? Can you play anybody here other than maybe AD?
Yeah, I mean, maybe AD, maybe LeBron if he's starting, but also not really. Like, the problem with Davis is that you have LeBron back. He's so close in salary to Embiid. He's also basically the same salary as Sabonis against Portland's bench. So it's really tough to prioritize that. You also have Russell expected back, so he's going to cut into the production from the other guards. It's a really difficult team to get to. Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like if you get to Davis or LeBron, cool. Like, they're going to be low owned. They're obviously really good, but there's nothing that I expect to prioritize here.
Yeah, I just don't see it. What are you expecting for minutes here for LeBron?
So he played 30 off the bench last game. If he starts, I assume he's playing mid-30s.
Yeah, I gave him 33 for right now. I didn't really have a great feel for it. Didn't seem like it was going to matter much anyway, even if I wanted to give him 35. So AD would be the guy I'd want to get to, but it just feels easier to get to Embiid at 11 than AD at 10-6.
Yeah, I just finished that crunch I was running, so I loaded in ownership and everything. And looking at the Lakers, if the slate started right now on DraftKings, I would have 2% Vanderbilt, 1% Davis, and that would be my Lakers.
Oof. How are you feeling about them heading into the playoffs?
If they're healthy, I think they're good.
Yeah, it's a scary spot.
Like, I would not want to play them in the postseason if LeBron and Davis and Russell are healthy.
I don't think anybody would. No one's calling for that matchup. So right now, B-Ball Index has them projected to be the 9 seed. They would play Dallas in the playoffs. Loser goes home. The ratings on that game would be fucking bonkers.
Yeah. One of my
LA
favorite games
too.
that I've ever watched, regular season games I've ever watched, was LeBron versus Luka back, I think, like right before COVID. Getting that in the postseason would be wild.
Yeah. And then winner would get the loser of Minnesota and the Pelicans. So, I mean, you'd feel pretty good about whoever the hell loses that one, particularly if it's the Pels.
The whole West is crazy to me. I think I was talking about this with either Ryan or Lofty the other day. I think the Nuggets kind of suck. I think Memphis could be scary in the postseason, but I'm also not sold on them. I think the Kings suck.
Yeah.
And then you just get a bunch of teams where it's like, if they're healthy, they're really good. Like 4 through 9. I mean, I think Oklahoma City is also underrated, but yeah, I'm not including them in this conversation. You know, but you have 4 through 9 where if you have Durant and Booker healthy and gelling, nobody wants to play them. If you have George back, nobody wants to play the Clippers. Nobody wants to play Golden State. I sure as hell wouldn't want to play Minnesota.
No.
Once they get, with Towns back. Zion, I assume, won't be back, so you kind of can throw the Pels out. But if he were back, I wouldn't want to play them. And I definitely wouldn't want to play the Lakers. And I wouldn't want to play the Mavs if they get in.
No. And whatever we want to say here about Denver, going to altitude to play them when they have home court is a problem in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That is definitely true.
Memphis is just, I think they're snake, but with no Clark now, if they can't have Adams back, I just think they're not going to have enough bullets in the gun, which is a shame. And then I think Sacramento is dookie, but right. Depending on who they play, and they need some breaks, because I think that they should get smacked around. But you get a Clippers team with no Paul George or something, and all of a sudden it looks a little bit more feasible. Oh man, who would you pick from the West right now? You got to do it.
Phoenix.
Yeah. Mine's Golden State, but I got to know that Wiggins is back.
Yeah, that's obviously huge.
Yeah.
I like Greg got Minnesota 200 to 1 or something the other day. I like that.
I mean, I think they're better than they show. I don't think they can get out of the West.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah.
He could probably buy his way out of that at some point in time for a good deal.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those, I think it's similar to the OKC bet I made.
Yeah.
I think that it's, if I could just run 8 million seasons, simulate 8 million seasons, I probably profit. But this season, I'm certainly just losing the money I put down.
Josh is trolling. Golden State is not good. Shocked.
Yeah.
Shocked. Who would have ever thought that Sean Dre would think something like that? Not me. Not me. Can't imagine it. By the way, 705 possessions. Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Draymond, Kevon Looney, plus 22. The best projected starting five lineup in basketball that has played that many minutes and possessions. It's they're no joke.
Yeah, but I mean, teams run their bench out for a bunch of minutes in the postseason, so who cares?
Yeah. So when those guys are all playing 42 minutes, that will matter. That will matter. Again, it's all dependent on health. Look, that's who's going to come out of the West. The healthiest team, probably.
And I mean, that's always the case, but it's especially amplified this year since all of these teams are banged up down the stretch.
Yeah. Golden State gets bailed out every game. Bailed out of what? I'm fast. I can't wait for the playoffs. I love basketball playoffs.
Yeah, the only thing, I never end up watching them that much because baseball's on and I'm just over basketball by then. But yeah, they're fun.
Sacramento, Sacramento's not banged up. They just don't matter.
Yeah, no, there's a difference. I meant of the good teams.
Yeah. To me, I don't even count them in the discussion.
Right. Yeah, I completely ignore Sacramento when I'm looking at the Western standings.
They're where they are in the standings because they've had the best health of any team in the league. Now that's great. And I'm happy that they're having a good season, but we have to understand that they are not great on paper.
Yeah. I do wish that they would they're not, but I wish they would fall in the standings because in addition to OKC at 800 to 1, I took Mark Dagnall to win Coach of the Year at 25 to 1.
I mean, he's an exceptional coach.
Yeah, it's another one of those, I know that Brown's going to get it, but it should be a hell of a lot closer.
I know I tweeted this out a while ago. I'll do it again. Plus 3.5 is the net rating for Fox, Herter, Barnes, Murray, Sabonis this season. Plus 3.8 is the net rating for Nembhard, Halliburton, Heald, Neesmith, Turner. So for all of you big Kings fans out there, don't forget your starting lineup has performed worse than the Pacers' main starting lineup. I guess we'll ignore that one, though. On the opposite side of the Lakers, we've got the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are basically the same team that they normally are. And when I say normally, I mean it the way that it sounds, because there's a Q tag on Alex Caruso, and this dude is just simply never healthy. Q tag on Andre Drummond, mental health, I guess. 13% ownership coming into Zach LaVine, about 5 coming into DeRozan or to Vooch. Same thing as we're normally doing here. You're probably picking one of those three, and LaVine probably looks the best.
Yep. If the slate started right now, I would have less than 10% of everybody on Chicago. I'd have about 9.5%. I'd have close to 10%. LaVine, he's the easiest to get to just based on his positions and salary. Vooch is fine. He's just another center in that price range. DeRozan looks fine. If Caruso's in, he's cheap, but you're never, excited about getting him. I do think Levine's the top guy to get to from the Bulls.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's the same way that we look at the Bulls basically every day. When you look at it, it's just like, well, one of those top three guys are going to be decent. And that's probably all you need to talk about for the Chicago Bulls. Does Caruso matter to you?
Not really. Like if he's out, you're getting more minutes for some combination of Patrick Williams, Kobe White, Beverly, but they're all also priced up a bit.
Okay. Let's see. Well, I got nothing else here for the Bulls. So seems to me that we need to talk a little bit about PrizePicks, presenting sponsor of this show. I'm repping the gear. I love PrizePicks just in general. I might love the t-shirt even more, which might say something, but man, it's like the softest shirt in the world. Love it. Love it. PrizePicks, if you want to send me any more t-shirts, I would not be mad about it. One, you guys should head to our ODDSSHOPPER YouTube channel, subscribe there. Watch the PrizePicks video that I put out every day, so long as that I'm not in Vegas or feeling like death. Had another one out for today, another 5 picks. Was smashing before I went on vacay. We'll see where we're going to be at after today. But what you guys can do is click the link in the description, sign up for PrizePicks, make a deposit. They'll match that deposit up to $100. So my recommendation, put in 100, you'll get 100. I'd also recommend picking up our Bet Pro package, or our Pick'em Pro package rather, or Bet Pro, I guess. There's so many pro packages. Take the Pick'em Pro package. We'll take all the PrizePicks odds that we have. We'll take all the props that we see on the site. We load them into our model. We give you the percentage chance you go over or under. Adam and I are just going to touch on a couple of those right now. We got fantasy scores. Let's see. Who's the first perfect one to touch on? The guy that we've been talking about the most for today. How do you feel about over under 33.5 for Jrue Holiday?
Slight over.
Yeah, I got it a little bit over as well. And I have Middleton out, so it would be one that I would want to try to get. So don't be afraid to go ahead and do that, folks. Let's see. Who else would be interesting? Jordan Nwora, he is pulling a ton of ownership today. He is at 29.5.
Slight under?
Yeah, me too. I got him at 28.7. So it's interesting to think about it like that, but good projection for him at the very least.
By the way, if the slate started right now, I would have 0 Jrue, which I don't like, but
that makes sense, though. You're bad at this.
Yeah.
What about Mikal Bridges, 38.5?
Over.
Yeah, I got him at 40, so I would happily take that over as well. Let's see. There's got to be one more here that we should be touching on that we would find interesting. Why does Grayson Allen even have one? That seems so useless for today. So PrizePicks has Spencer Dinwiddie at 37.5. That's 4 clear of Jrue Holiday.
How
do you feel about it? Spencer Dinwiddie, 37.5.
I like the over.
I've got him, but just barely. I got him at 38 too. So that's PrizePicks, folks. Like I said, click the link in the description. Make that deposit at PrizePicks. They will match it up to $100. My recommendation, put in 100, get another 100. Going to game number 6. The Clippers. 1-point favorites in Memphis. 231 total. This one got a little bit different earlier. For the Clippers, we obviously know no Paul George. Nick Batum should be starting. Norm Powell questionable, which is pretty relevant considering he is the current highest owned guy on the Clippers, 4,300 shooting guard, small forward eligible. How are you handling Norm Powell if he happens to be playing today?
Yeah, curious to see what his playing time restriction would be. He is cheap enough that he's a decent value. I'm getting around like 13% right now, assuming that he plays like low 20s, 20 to 22 minutes. At 4,300, I think that's enough to get, a little bit of him. He is getting some ownership as well, though, so it's not like I feel great about it. I'm pretty much just right around the field on him. Not getting the much of anything else from this team. If you get to a little Kawhi or Westbrook, they would be the next guys that I would want to get to. You do get, increased production from Kawhi with no George. You get increased playing time from Westbrook with no George, but there's nothing really that stands out to me other than the cheap price tag on Powell.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page there. I mean, Kawhi at 10K just feels like a pretty healthy price tag given everything else that's at the top. He doesn't exactly separate from anybody else. I like that Powell price. I don't know how much he plays. I gave him 20. I basically turned Bones Highland into Norm Powell. Bones had played 24 minutes over the past 3 games. Basically, I think they just axe Bones to a degree and turn him into Powell.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
I don't have anything else to say. I mean, $5,100 Nick Batum seems like a complete impossibility at this point.
Yeah, I mean, big game last time out, played 31 minutes. Looked like he was going to play around 36 if that game had been competitive. But on this particular slate, very difficult to run that back.
Okay. I got nothing else here for the clips.
Same.
I think we're going to have a little bit more to talk about here. Just a guess. Memphis Grizzlies. They flipped the script for today a little bit earlier. So, doubtful tags on Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson, and Tyus Jones. We've got Q tags on Xavier Tillman and John Conchar. But Ja Morant is in for today. Let's just start with Ja. 9K, 53% owned. He's obviously the best pay up option that you can get to today. Are you nervous about his playing time?
Not really.
Okay.
He played around 30 minutes in his last start. I don't expect them to do anything crazy like limiting him because they did rest him last game and they do need him to get back into NBA shape. I'm expecting you're getting around 30 to 32 minutes from him. He's much less expensive than he normally is, and he's playing without Bane and Jackson. I love Morant here.
Okay. I'm on the same page. He clearly projects as the best guy that's in this range, and it's not particularly close. The ownership is fully warranted to me. Memphis does tend to limit their guys' minutes usually. Yeah. Anyway, so I gave him 32. I didn't want to get too aggressive, right. But that's even still, that's going to get him everywhere.
The 30 minutes he played last game is not very far off of what he typically plays anyway.
Right. So, all the Ja Morant. Is there even anything else to say here?
I don't really think so. I mean, if you wanted to make the case that there's always just a bunch of guys in that range that, can have big games and are going to be much lower owned, then sure. But 631 minutes this year with no Bane or Jackson on the floor, 38.9% usage rate, 45% assist percentage, 1.5 DraftKings points per minute, 1.4 FanDuel points per minute. I would have, if the slate started right now, I'd be around 85% on Ja.
Yep. Okay, we're on the same page there. Before we go any further with Memphis, make sure you guys are hitting that like button. There's about 1,900 of you in here, 270 likes. We should be able to get well up over that 300 mark if you go ahead and hit that like button. Is Santi Aldama a better option than Ja Morant?
I don't think better, but also extremely good.
Yeah. 4K, power forward center eligibility. He's projected for 42% ownership. Gonna have to play a bunch. You assume he's just starting in the Jaren Jackson role. And, I gave him 29 minutes. At that price tag, feels pretty difficult for him to fail today.
Yeah, 4K, should play a bunch of minutes. He's played 767 minutes without Bane or Jackson this year, 0.87 DraftKings points per minute. Still not a super high usage guy or anything like that, but at this price tag, getting the increased playing time, it's just really easy to get him in the lineups, really easy to use him as value. We have him with a 34% chance of being optimal. If the slate started right now, I'd have about 33%. So, technically underweight, but still playing a ton.
Yeah. Ja Morant, Santi Aldama have to be in cash lineups?
I can't imagine that they're not.
Okay. What do we do with the rest of Memphis? Because the third most owned guy for the Grizzlies right now is $3,200 power forward center Kenneth Lofton Jr. 19% owned. I don't totally love this one.
I don't think that's real either. We have him with a 3% chance of being optimal and 19% ownership. We have him projected for 15.8 DraftKings points. I don't think other sites have him projected all that high either. I think that ownership just comes down. And so Xavier Tillman piece matters. He's questionable. If he is also out, you're getting minutes from Kenneth Lofton Jr. I don't think there's really any way around that. And 3,200 power forward eligible, he would start to look interesting. 71 minutes this year without Bane or Jackson, 1.45 DraftKings points per minute. It's March basketball, man. So there is the potential for him to be very, very good here. And I think you can play him in tournaments, even if Tillman is in, assuming that he ends up not being projected for 20% ownership. But overall 1.33 DraftKings points per minute this year. He's a good point per minute guy. It's just a matter of, how many minutes does he end up playing?
Chris Middleton out, by the way.
Cool. Now maybe I can get to some Drew.
I would have really preferred that to come out an hour from now, but whatever. Doesn't matter here. What do you want to do with the rest of the Grizzlies? Dylan Brooks at 5,600. My first thought was like, oh man, I'm going to get a ton of Dylan Brooks now. And that doesn't appear to be the case. 2% projected ownership, maybe probably a little too low here. Luke Kennard is at 4% ownership. We've got this Tillman news waiting in the wings, but he doesn't have a lot behind him. That's for sure. There's David Roddy at 3,700. How do you see yourself getting to the rest of Memphis?
Yeah, so right now I'm not getting too much. I'm getting like 13% Tillman. That obviously a lot of, I get to a lot of Lofton, I'm sure, if Tillman ends up being out. But getting like 5% Roddy, a couple percent of Kennard, Conchar, Brooks. Right now, I'm not getting too much. But like if you take Conchar out, that's opening up more minutes because you're already without Vince Williams and Zaire Williams. So if you take out Conchar, that's opening up more wing minutes. Where, maybe then you start getting to, like, if Konchar's out, you start getting to a little bit more Roddy, for example. But if we assume that Conchar is in, I'm not getting to a lot outside of Morant, Aldama, and then a decent amount of Tillman.
Okay. Man, that Tillman news is massive.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know. What's he Q with? Right ankle soreness. Ooh. Yikes. Be ready. Be ready for it, Tillman. That'll be a real interesting, like, if that news drops at 7:30 or something, that is going to be quite the scramble to get in before 8 o'clock with the way that this slate is set up. Because that's going to really change the game up a bit. I'll take Giannis and Luke over Kenneth Loftus. All right. Anything else that we should touch on here for Memphis?
No, I mean, we just need more information.
We sure do. We go to the Pistons, 9.5-point dogs in OKC, 229 total in this one. And, this is so gross. No Rodney Magruder, no Cade, Burks, Diallo, Bogdanovich, Stewart. It's kind of the same guys we've been getting other than the fact that Magruder is out. 9% ownership to Killian Hayes, 8 to Jalen Duren. Those are the two high marks for Detroit. These guys are sort of all just priced where they should be at this point, but I've got the most interest of anybody here in Bagley at 6,800, but at the same time, like he's just in a price range where there's like 20 other dudes that look like that.
Yeah, it's just so tough to really get much on this slate. Bagley did play huge minutes last game. If you tell me he plays 36 minutes again today, I'm interested, but I'm getting to like 3% of him, 5% of Duren, 3% of Wiseman. There's nothing I really want here just because they are mostly correctly priced. There is upside. I think that when you just look at the salaries and think about the most upside, at their respective salaries, I think Duren and Wiseman are the two that stand out, but then they're center only. So you get into the opportunity cost aspect. And then, you have Bagley at power forward, but he is significantly more expensive.
Ooh, that's a take. Not you. When I look at this Pistons team, I can't, there's not a single dude on this team. I look at him just like, this is a guy that I need to get to today. It's just like 6 different guys of randomness to me. Full randomness. Kyle Anderson now questionable. We will get to Minnesota in a bit, but matters a little bit less now. That's for sure. Is there anything else that we should be talking about here other than Detroit just being like last guy in lineup filler?
I don't really think so. They have a bunch of guys that are fine. They have nobody that looks actually good on the slate.
And now we go to Oklahoma City, and this one I am fascinated to talk about. We lost SGA earlier today, and then Lindy Waters as well. Poku back. Good for him. 19% ownership coming into Isaiah Joe. We've got 14% coming into Josh Giddey. Just 9 coming into Jalen Williams. I want to start with Jalen Williams. I'm a little surprised that he's not getting more ownership. He has been a very, very different guy in the games that SGA hasn't played. I have him projected significantly better than that ownership projection is implying. I love Jalen Williams today, especially against the Pistons.
If the slate started right now, I'd have 35%.
Thank you.
Yeah. 1.25 DraftKings points per minute from Jalen Williams this year in the games he's played with Giddey and without SGA. He's also just gotten better as the year has gone on. You've seen that in even in games where SGA is in, he's over the last couple of months averaging about a fantasy point per minute and playing more minutes in those games compared to overall for the season being around 0.8. Just really, really good.
Yeah, he's standing out to me as like my favorite play of the day relative to ownership, even more so than Drew. Like this one doesn't make a ton of sense to me. He's like, if this were a real matchup, it might be a little bit different to me. I'd just be like, oh, maybe I'm being a little too optimistic. It's the Pistons on the opposite side. Like what's the resistance coming from Detroit?
We have 9 games now where Gilgeous-Alexander has been out and Josh Giddey has been in. 1.27 DraftKings points per minute, 32.8 minutes per game, 24.5% usage rate, 24% assist percentage.
Yeah.
He's good. Also, I think kind of an interesting bet for Rookie of the Year, but again, like I just don't think he'll get it, but
yeah,
the odds are pretty nice.
They just don't give out Rookie of the Year to people that when there are, 27% usage number 1 pick type dudes out there doing what Banchero did.
Right.
That would fly in the face of everything. He has been insane over the past 2 months, though. He also, was not insane for the first 2 months.
Right.
How do you feel about Giddey and Joe? Like, I didn't want to undersell those guys, but I think Jalen Williams is pretty clearly the best option from Oklahoma City. And after that, I think it's a little bit murky.
Yeah, he's the only one that I'm getting a lot of. I'm getting, around 5% Giddey. That's fine. There's just so many good guards that I like on this slate. It's really tough. Giddey is about a 1.3 fantasy point per minute guy without SGA. Clearly he's going to look good, but you have John Morant for $800 more, who just obviously looks better. So that makes it tough. Dort, Joe, like if you get to them a little bit, that's fine. But overall, I don't like OKC nearly as much as I did yesterday, just an entirely different slate. But Jalen Williams individually looks fantastic.
Yeah, I'm glad
especially
we're on
at
the same page,
very low ownership.
Yeah, he came out of my stuff like in a really aggressive manner. And this was like the guy that I've been waiting to have a conversation about. So I'm glad you and I are taking a look at it in the same way. You taking any flyer on the rest of these Thunder guys, the other Jalen Williams, JRE, anything like that?
No.
Didn't think so. Did not think so. Don't blame you either. Let's go to Utah. The Jazz, 4-point favorites in San Antonio, 234 total for Utah. Missing a lot here. No Lauri Markkanen, no Clarkson, no Colin Sexton, no Rudy Gay. Simone Fontecchio is in. 20% ownership coming into Olynyk. Interesting. 14 coming into Walker Kessler. I think he looks like the best, but there's a lot of Walker Kesslers out there today. 15% coming into THT. He's 6,900. How are you handling Utah? This is a weird team today.
Yeah, really, really good spot. You have seen ownership come up on this team since we got Markkanen ruled out. Walker Kessler was not getting any ownership this morning, and I really liked him in tournaments. I still like him, but the ownership is there now. Taylor Horton-Tucker certainly looks better without Markkanen. Dunn looks better without Markkanen. Olynyk looks better. So I'm kind of just around the field on this team, getting around 15% Kessler, 13% Olynyk, 12% Dunn, 7% Horton-Tucker, 7% Fontecchio. Yeah, no real crazy stands for me here, but I think they're just all pretty obviously good plays in a great matchup.
Yeah. I'd like to get to a ton of Kessler. There's just so many different versions of him today that it's significantly more difficult, but they are wildly shorthanded. They don't have Jarrell Brantley any longer. They signed Luka Samanic. He does not appear to be in the DraftKings player pool, or at least he wasn't earlier today. I don't know if they added him. That shouldn't matter here. That's $6,900 price tag for THT. Like if he plays the 35 minutes that he played on Monday, I'm going to be probably pissed, but how do you project his minutes?
Who?
THT.
Oh, around 30.
Okay.
Like they don't like playing him and Dunn next to each other. They have been closing next to each other recently. But typically you've been getting rotations where like they don't play many minutes alongside each other until then. You got 35 minutes from Horton-Tucker last game. That's possible, but typically you're getting, something like 30 from Horton-Tucker, 24, 25 from Dunn.
Guitar Z-Man 2247. Kenny Lofton. I immediately thought of the retired MLB player. I'm old. You thought about it correctly.
Yeah.
It's where you wanted to be. Go ahead and give it a goog. Anything else here? Can you go to Akbaji? Do you like 20% ownership on Kelly Olynyk feels too high? That doesn't seem like a guy that I'm going to be getting to all that frequently.
I'm not getting to 21%. I'm more in line with the optimal percentage. We have him optimal around 12%. I'm getting him around 12%.
Okay. That works for me. When we go over to the San Antonio side, the Spurs are a giant pain in the ass, but today seems to be a little bit more cut and dry. No Devin Vassell, no Keldon Johnson, no Jeremy Sohan. We've got 26% ownership coming into Zach Collins. That is the high mark. How do you feel about Collins at 6,400?
I think it's too cheap of a price tag. There's a ton of good centers on the slate, but it's another spot where he's probably going a little bit over-owned, but also just a good play. I have around 22% right now, so no issues. You don't have Keldon, you don't have Vassell, you don't have Sohan, so a lot of the offense should run through Zach Collins. He should give you 30 minutes or so. He's just too cheap.
Yeah, looks good. Other guy that's in double digits in ownership right now is Malachi Branham, 4,200 point guard, shooting guard. How do you feel about him at 11%?
Branham, I think, looks okay. I prefer Trey Jones at 5,700. Branham getting a little bit more ownership. I think both of them look pretty good, but I'd be getting to a bit more Jones. I'd pretty much be in line. I'm getting basically 2x the field on Trey Jones right now, and then a little bit under the field on Branham. But I think that they both are solid enough plays, good matchup.
Yeah, I think Branham and Jones are the other two guys that I'd be looking at after getting to Collins. Do you want to get to anything else here? That because it's obviously this matchup is like a really good spot. Do you want Keita Bates-Diop? Do you want Devontae Graham? Is there a Mamu path here at 4,600?
I don't really think so on the slate. Center only 4,600. Collins in. If you wanted to play some Devontae Graham at 4,400, I wouldn't hate that. I'm kind of just getting small amounts of, everybody else, Branham, McDermott, Bates-Diop, Graham, but Collins and Jones are the guys that I'm really getting to.
All righty. One last call for likes, folks. I see we're at 330. I think we can get a little bit more. Before we go any further, I got to remind you guys, sign up for the NBA lineup generator. It's 50% off for a week. We're coming down the home stretch of this NBA season, so you're going to get it for $4.48, I believe. I'm giving you that off the top of my head. It'll be on the graphic. It is $4.48. Scan the QR code, click the link in the description if you want. We generate all the lineups on the back end. We throw everything out that we don't like, and then we present it all to you. Click save if you like it. Click discard if you don't. You could export up to 20 via CSV. Run those lineups to be contrarian, balanced, chalky. You'll see projections, ownership, optimal rates, lock a player, swap a player if you want. This is going to make you better at DFS. If you're looking to play more lineups, or if you're looking for more help in lineup construction in general, I think this is going to be a really good first start for you. And if you hate the product, cancel at any time during that week. Worst case scenario, you're out $4.48.
Kelly Olynyk's out.
Well, that chalk ownership went away. Let's just swing back to Utah for a brief second. Who gets the biggest benefit there? Is that Juan Toscano Anderson?
It's my guess. I don't know. We haven't seen this situation from them. My guess is Toscano Anderson starts.
Okay.
And
3,500
really
power forward only?
I don't think he's that good of a value still. It is a really good matchup. He is cheap. It's just that you still have Aldama. You have the Portland guys. You might have Kenneth Lofton Jr. at 3,200. I would still play those guys over Toscano Anderson. I don't totally trust his minutes. He's not a great point per minute guy. So yeah, if he's not popular and he's starting and you want to roll the dice on him, sure. But I don't have a ton of confidence.
Does that make you more interested in Kessler?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I don't think it affects his playing time. You're getting Damian Jones backing him up. Olynyk's not a great rebounder or anything.
Does anybody else get a benefit here? Obviously somebody does, but
yeah, it probably locks in Agbaji and Fontecchio minutes a little bit more than they already were.
Okay. Fantasy Guru.
Maybe they play Chris Dunn more minutes alongside Horton Tucker now, just because they're running out of bodies.
Yeah, it's possible. Fantasy Guru hit us with his member question from 16 months. Top 2 must plays on FanDuel. It should be pretty easy.
I haven't looked at FanDuel, so hang on.
Santi Aldama, I think at 4,400 power forward center has to be one of those answers. Ja is 9,900 there. Probably still Ja.
Yeah, I mean, we have in terms of optimal percentage, we have Keon Johnson number 1, Horton Tucker number 2, Aldama 3, Morant 4.
Okay, there we go. All right, let's close this out. Final 2 games. Not as much to talk about here, so I think we should be able to zip through them pretty quickly. We have about 5 minutes to go before we turn this one over to the live before lock crew. Minnesota 5-point dogs in Phoenix, 234 total for Minnesota. Not much to talk about here, although we did just lose out on Kyle Anderson, or potentially lose out on Kyle Anderson. He now has a Q tag. There's also a Q tag on Taurean Prince and Jalen Noel. If all those guys end up out, it might change some things. But the highest owned guy on Minnesota right now is 2% owned Rudy Gobert. Add him to the list of centers in that range for right now, but I don't see anything from Minnesota.
No, I mean, I like the price tags on Karl Anthony Towns, on Gobert. I think in tournaments they make some sense, but there's just so many just clear, obvious plays on this slate that it's tough to get to much here.
Yeah, none of these guys showed up in anything for me. To me, like, if you're going to Gobert, it's because he's a pivot to some other center that's in this range that's getting the ownership.
Like in the crunch I ran during the show, I got the 5% Towns. I didn't get anything else. That was with Anderson projected in, but I like the idea of Gobert in tournaments, but there's also just so many other centers that look like that.
Yeah. And, like $9,100 Edwards, by all means, but I just don't see any of it here today.
Agreed.
Similarly, on the Phoenix side, the highest owned guy for the Suns is 2.5% owned Chris Paul. Nobody else in single digits here. We've got Durant at 9,700. We know Ayton took a major haircut when Durant was in for the previous 3 games. I don't see anything on the Phoenix side. I want to watch this game, but I don't want to play it in DFS.
Yeah, same here. You have Durant back. Obviously you still get a very high ceiling from guys like Devin Booker, Chris Paul, but very difficult to get to on this slate. We saw DeAndre Ayton's usage go through the floor when Durant was briefly with this team previously. Makes it tough to want to get there on a loaded center slate.
Yeah, it's that simple here to there's just no way to talk about any of these guys in this game. And then we go to Sacramento, 14-point favorites in Portland, 235 total. De'Aaron Fox, 9% owned at 8,200. I think that price tag just looks fantastic. 5% ownership coming into Sabonis. I think he's, certainly interesting and could just absolutely smash this Portland team. You going to anything for Sacramento other than those two?
Pretty much those two. I mean, it's a great matchup. I like the price tag on Fox at 8,200. I like getting to Sabonis if you can. The problem is just how many good centers there are. And then assuming Embiid's in, I'm getting to Embiid first, I think. But, obviously not going to be upset if I get the Sabonis. The rest of these guys on the night slate, sure, get to some of these wings because it is a really good matchup. But on the main slate, I think it's pretty much those two and moving on.
Yeah. On a different day, I would love to get to way more Fox, but it's getting hard. Ja has really changed up what De'Aaron Fox looks like today. Interesting pivot, I guess. Play them together too if you want.
Yeah, if the slate started right now, I'm actually kind of just getting 2 to 5% across the board of every relevant guy on the Kings.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And now we close it out with the Portland Trailblazers. And honestly, it may seem like this is a team that we should talk a lot about, but it's really kind of cut and dry here. This team stinks. They have, as best I can tell, 9 active bodies. Allegedly, they're signing somebody that sucks, Skylar Mays. I assume that's not happening today. 50% ownership coming into Keon Johnson. Can we just start there? If he's 5K, point guard, shooting guard, obviously has gotten the usage bump when every relevant player hasn't played for Portland. That ownership scares me a little bit, but at the same time, I do think that he is the best option for you today.
Yeah, it scares me, but I'm still getting a massive amount. Point guard, shooting guard, 5K flat. One of the only guys left on this team that can actually score the basketball or attempt to score the basketball. It is a Kings team that doesn't play defense, so you have that working for you. Cam Reddish, not expected to play, just takes another guy out of that rotation. He played 26 minutes last game. You got 31 off the bench for Johnson. Granted, some of that was garbage time, but he's going to look good. The one thing that does concern me, in the last 2 games, he hasn't played a single minute next to Ryan Arcidiacono.
Really? Okay.
I don't know how much that matters, but this team does still have wings. And he's being projected as if he's going to get wing minutes. If they're actually going to just run a point guard rotation of Ryan Arcidiacono plus Keon Johnson equals 48, and then give more minutes, to Matisse Thybulle, Nas Little, Jabari Walker, Kevin Knox, John Butler. Like if they're going to go that route, then Keon Johnson is way overowned. Yeah. But I'm just not confident they're actually going to do that.
What else do you want to prioritize from Portland?
I mean, Eubanks looks good. Knox looks good. Yeah. Little and Sharp look fine. I think that the ownership's a little high across the board on these guys, but clearly a very, very good spot.
How do you feel about Thibault if he's 9% out of all these Portland guys? Because that's the piece that I start to look at, and it's just like, is that the easiest way to just get different with this team?
I think it's interesting, and kind of like I was just saying, if the slate started right now, I'd have a ton of Keon Johnson, but I am going to go back and sort of look at how he's projected because I think there's a chance he's a little bit too high based on their recent rotations. If Keon Johnson is starting, which I don't expect him to, then just throw everything I just said out of the window if he's starting alongside Arcidiacono or if he's starting at all. But if Keon Johnson's coming off the bench with Arcidiacono starting, I am concerned. Like, I think he's still a good play, but I'm a little concerned because just based on the rotations they've played and the fact that they do still have plenty of wings. So in that case, like if you get that same starting lineup, 50% ownership to 5K Keon Johnson compared to $9 to $3,800 Matisse Thybulle, I think is a pretty interesting gap. When you look at, the playing time last game, obviously there's blowout risk in this one as well, but you got 31 minutes from Keon Johnson, including basically the entire second half. In the first half, Keon Johnson played a total of like 10 or 11 minutes backing up Arcidiacono. Matisse Thybulle didn't play a lot in that game, only played 14 minutes. There's no reason Matisse Thybulle can't play like more minutes than Keon Johnson in this game.
Yeah, we also got 33 minutes out of Matisse Thybulle on Sunday. That was the game where we got 27 out of Arcidiacono, 21 to Keon Johnson. Like, all bets are off for who's actually getting everything out here today. Other than, I assume Shaedon Sharpe is the guy that plays the most, or the expected most minutes for this team.
Agreed.
Max Portland guys.
3.
Yeah, I agree. Too much variability here.
Well, and there's just so many other good spots on the slate.
Yeah.
And they're not like free. They're cheap, but you're not talking about like an 8-man rotation at 3K across the board or something.
Agreed. Anything else?
I guess quickly, because it came up a bunch in chat. Udoka should not benefit from Kelly Olynyk being out. Kelly Olynyk plays the 4. Udoka plays the 5. Walker Kessler is still playing. They aren't going to they are very, 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 very unlikely to play Udoka alongside Kessler. So just saw his name coming up a lot. He doesn't play the same position as Olynyk. Yeah,
I think the most you're going to get is like 3 minutes total scrambling the Damian Jones, Azubuike, Kessler trio together. And doesn't seem super
5
likely.
Total minutes, 10 total possessions this year with Walker Kessler on the floor for Udoka. I assume most of that involves free throw shooting and rebounding.
Folks, thank you for joining us for this one. Don't go anywhere. Do hit that like button, though, while you stay here. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. Thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this show. Good luck with this slate, everybody. Should be a fun one. And enjoy baseball tomorrow. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? We're back for yet another edition of the Stokastic Hall of Fame, where we give away some wonderful free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, $120 value, and we brag for you. Do all the bragging for you, get you inducted into the Hall of Fame. Right here, we do this every single week in between all of the shows, so make sure you never miss it. All you got to do, download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. Finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more, and tweet your wins at Stokastic HOF to get inducted and to get that free month. And remember, doesn't matter if you're entering the quarter art jukebox, the nickel, $1, $20, doesn't matter what the entry is, as long as it's a field of 5,000 or more and you finish top 3, you're in, free month and inducted. Let's make it happen. Kick it off with Jackson Blake. Monster win here. Jackson says, I want to thank the Stokastic team for all they do. Tools are top-notch, and they've helped me become a better player over the years. Keep up the good work. $50,000 in the fadeaway, taking down first place. Huge win, Jackson. And our own Brian Berryman. To think I almost didn't play Corrales. LFG, $10,000, third place, little PGA action in the 200K pitch and putt. How about Salty Whale, too? Thanks for the deeper dive videos and ownership projections. I picked up a 1% DeRozan, turned 4 in the 3,000. I got second on Friday and cashed out. This is almost more impressive than anything. $4 in the $3,000. Huge stuff for our buddy Salty Whale. That's a big win. And SZ, how about Sean Zahn, right? Now, I love this because he says nothing beats making money betting on something you know nothing about, absolutely nothing about. I say it all the time, right? You could use these tools, go into it, use them to guide you. You don't really need to know some of these sports. Sean used the Odds Shopper tool. I assume the Parlay tool, Parlay Builder tool. First week free, by the way, over at oddshopper.com. And netted $21,000 on, admittedly, pretty large wager, but a massive round robin win for Sean, using the Parlay Builder tool on a sport he knows nothing about. Gotta love it. And Michael Campbell, shout out to Awesemo YouTube channel. Stokastic now, but you're forgiven. Change that avatar, brother. $600, 12K mini max, second place to Michael Campbell. Congrats, man. And ship happens. How about this? Didn't finish first, but a great win. Hopefully I get my Hall of Fame love, Stokastic Hall of Fame, and my free month. Didn't get it last time. I mean, who thought it'd be a good idea to put this up here? In all seriousness, though, I talked to this guy the other day. He's been in contact with customer service. He's getting this free month. He will attest to that. Thanks to the Stokastic crew and a big win. Third place in the 30K and 120 entry max. Congratulations, Ship. And yes, we got you covered. Do not worry. Joe, always nice turning 25 cents into $200. Again, massive ROI. Thanks to the Stokastic.com lineup generator. Yeah. Appreciate all y'all do. So uncomfortable saying the word y'all, but congrats, man. Second place in the NBA fadeaway, followed by Ben P. Projections do it again. Matt Kajeski's projections do it again. Third top three in 7 NCAA tournament slates. Huge. $212 in the 6K mini max. And Michael M, right entry in the wrong field, but second nonetheless. Put me in that Stokastic Hall of Fame. You're here, brother. Second place, $500 there. And Eric Carl, always play NBA, rarely NHL, but no matter the contest I enter, I always watch live before lock and get my advice from you. Came close many times, but tonight I'm in the Hall of Fame. Hell yeah. Oh, what a great feeling that must be. Congrats, dude. Third place in this one as well. Quarter jukebox, like I said, still free month. And our boy Emac. How about Emac? Thanks to Stokastic. Had a great night with the PrizePicks Flex Friday promo between the projections, Eric Lindquist's recommendation in the betting Discord, and the free NBA building blocks article. A little self-endorsement there by Emac. Great article, though. Everything fell into place for a cool $500. 6 picks, $20 entry, $500 for Emac. And we rounded out with the game 007. Picked up a top 3 showing and some decent change in the late night jukebox to push a little in the NBA these last few weeks after retooling the approach and getting the mojo before whatever that says. Congrats to all of you guys. Welcome to the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Now been inducted. Go collect your free months, and we'll see you back here for the next one. Peace.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome to the Stokastic NBA Live Before Lock Show, and I'm pretty excited. You know, it's the usual Wednesday night. I'm here with Neil Orfield, the flannel god himself, and we're going to be talking about PrizePicks, but also MLB season starts tomorrow, and I am very excited about this, especially because there's a lot of nonsense going on along with NBA right now. So the fact that we're not going to have to deal with these NBA injury reports when we're playing baseball DFS tomorrow afternoon, I'm excited about that for sure. I hope you guys are excited about it. As you come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Are you looking forward to the start of baseball season, Neil?
Yes, it's going to be a lot of work because I'm going to be doing daily shows for baseball. So from that angle, it's a mixed bag, but can be fun. I'm going to be producing some of my own shows. That'll be kind of fun. Also going to be on a show tomorrow with Alex Baker. So that should be a great show. And then Terry on Friday as well. So we're going to have a couple shows where I'm hosting and I'm looking forward to those too.
And if you guys want access to all of the tools that we're going to be having for baseball, because starting tomorrow, we've got a promo going on right now. If you sign up using the promo code MLB is back, you can take advantage of a limited time offer that we have to get you 50% off a Stokastic Platinum monthly membership. Now, something we should note, this does not include BetPro. It doesn't include Fantasy Cruncher. I know there's been a little bit of confusion about that lately, but this package does include all of our projections and tools that are available at Stokastic.com. And for MLB starting up, it's going to be huge. Baseball, we've got player projections, we've got our ownership projections, top stacks tool, top pitchers tool, which is stuff that is invaluable to me when I build out baseball apps. I'm pretty excited to start working on those later tonight as I sit at my desk all night and wait for whatever random ass NBA news to drop, which may or may not happen after the game's lock. You never know. You never know. People were quite outraged yesterday with the Dennis Smith Jr. situation. One man who is not, though. Were you watching our show last night, Neil, by chance?
I was watching your show. Yeah. Eric Lindquist was not hurt by that news.
No, Eric, who had Teo Maledon like half his lineups, and I was taking some jabs at him. We had chat was making fun of him a little bit. And who had the last laugh? Eric sitting on Teo Maledon, and I believe it was 39% of his lineups, ends up starting in place of Dennis Smith Jr. and just absolutely crushed yesterday. So if you guys were watching yesterday's show and you decided to tail Eric for whatever reason on Teo Maledon, you ran pure. Couldn't have run pure. So
couldn't have run pure.
Couldn't have run better than what Mr. Eric Lindquist ran last night, playing backups who just end up starting because players were ruled out after lock. So going to be just a lot of those slates to finish out the year, kind of the nature of the last couple weeks of the NBA regular season. And the injury report is so loaded today. I'm going to run down the names of players that are currently listed as questionable. This is who we're looking out for. Joel Embiid, questionable. James Harden, questionable. Obviously massive because they're on the same team. LeBron James is questionable. Kevin Durant, questionable, but all reports out of Phoenix are that Durant is expected to play today. I assume they just have him listed as questionable because you never know when he might just slip on the court in warmups. That's how he ended up missing games in the first place. But he's questionable. Jalen Brunson is questionable. Xavier Tillman is questionable. Miles Turner is questionable. Kyle Anderson is questionable. Norman Powell is questionable to return. So we've got all of these players on the injury report, Neil. And are you going to consider doing what I like to do in these scenarios sometimes and maybe think about avoiding the first game on the slate to give yourself extra flexibility? Is that a thought at all?
Milwaukee at Indiana. Let me take a look. Maybe, but Jordan Nwora is in that game. I know he was projecting pretty well for us. Giannis is our top projected play on the slate. So I don't think I will completely avoid. Also, this is a spot where Giannis projects really well. If you are projecting some star players to sit and more value to open up, that might be one more reason to play Giannis. So there are some players who might actually benefit from who are in the first game. So you maybe play Giannis. I'll probably play some Jordan Nwora. But I think I don't think I'm going to get a ton from that first game.
And we've got news already. Miles Turner is out. So we are going to start talking about that in a second. But I totally agree with you on Giannis because usually we're looking for value. Right. That's the reason I'm usually foregoing the first, second, maybe first few games of the slate is because I'm thinking, there's a bunch of value that's going to open up later. It's going to make it easier for me to spend up for stars. But for today, I think it's one of these shows or one of these slates where we look at it as, well, all right, if more value opens up later, we're going to want to have had more Giannis in this kind of spot. And the other thing too is there's no Chris Middleton for the Bucks. So Giannis is in a more premier spot. I do like getting to him from the first game. And I'm probably going to be even more aggressive with them than I normally would, just because I think there's going to be a lot of value that opens up later. And if the most expensive, best overall projected player is already locked when that value opens up, it doesn't do as much good to me. So I really do love getting to Giannis. And the absence of Miles Turner is going to help him here because Miles Turner is one of the better rim protectors that we have in the NBA. And if we look at some of the minutes from last game, we could start to try to figure out where some of the value might be from this scenario. So what's your immediate reaction to Miles Turner being out? It is going to be his third consecutive absence for the Pacers.
Yeah, we'll have to see what the starting lineup is, but it's obviously going to benefit. Both Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith are going to benefit here. It's tough because they're largely splitting minutes. What did Jalen Smith started and played 24 minutes in the last game? He actually played 25. Interesting. The game before that, Isaiah Jackson in the last game played 20. So they split exactly 24-24 the last game. The game prior to that, it was 25-23. They're splitting minutes. Obviously both benefit a lot, but their price tags have come up that they're not the biggest slam dunks on the planet, with Smith at 5,000, Isaiah Jackson at 4,500, but they're both going to be definitely playable. Yeah.
It's funny. People saying ownership is updated ish because ownership gets updated. No joke. Ownership updated 30 seconds before Miles Turner got rolled out. So that's something that's going to have to update again. I'm still a little annoyed about how everything played out in the last Pacers game, Neil, because you and I were talking about it on the show where we're going hey, there's no difference between Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith, but with Jalen Smith starting, he was expected to be more popular. And he ended up being so insanely popular and so highly owned last slate. I think people put way too much stock in the Pacers starting lineup last game. So I'm going to say the same exact thing today that I said on Monday. I don't really give a shit who starts between Jalen Smith and Isaiah Jackson. The better play to me is whoever is lower owned, because there's no real significant difference in what I would expect their minutes to be. We saw it the other day, and it was something that we had said that we thought was going to happen. 24 minutes for each of them in the last game. I would expect something similar to happen for today's slate. So whoever's lower owned is the better play of the two. And last slate we ended up with, it was like 40% owned Jalen Smith, and then we ended up getting like 13% owned Isaiah Jackson. Jackson ended up being the better fantasy producer. So I hope we get something similar. I hope the starter is super popular, and then the backup just kind of goes unowned in some sort of similar way. Let's see what the price points we have on these guys are for today. This isn't one of those slates where I could just know off the top of my head what every backup's price point is, because there's a lot of guys that are a lot of guys on the injury report. There's a lot of scenarios to account for, but we currently have Jalen Smith is 5,000 on DK with power forward and center eligibility. Isaiah Jackson is 4,500. Honestly, neither of them are that high of priority plays at those kind of price points for me anyway. Let's see what we have on FanDuel. FanDuel, we have Isaiah Jackson is priced at 5,800. That's super expensive, and he only has power forward eligibility. Jalen Smith, 5,000. All right, so we just kind of gave that preamble on what we think is going to happen with the Pacers here, the front court situation. So I'm going to say that I think that both of them are viable, but very low priority plays. And I don't expect either of them to be massively popular either, unless it's Isaiah Jackson starting at center. Then maybe he'll pick up some ownership, because we saw how the field reacted last time. But I don't think either of these guys are going to be massively chalky, considering the price points we just went over. Are you going to prioritize getting to Isaiah Jackson or Jalen Smith?
I don't think so. We just updated our projections, and we've got Jalen Smith now at 30 fantasy points and Isaiah Jackson at almost 28. That feels a little bit high to me, but I guess if we put him in for 24 apiece, let me refresh. But neither of them are going to be a huge part. I mean, 30 fantasy points at is he 5,000? That projects pretty well. So maybe I'll have some interest, but neither is going to become a huge priority, just because, as we've talked about, they're just going to be splitting minutes 24 most likely. That seems to be the direction it's been going between these guys. So it's really hard to want to play a ton of a player who projects for playing about 24 minutes with their price tags having come up as much as they have. So I wouldn't say either of them is going to be a priority for me. I think I'll probably get to a little bit. So we've got Isaiah Jackson now at 26 fantasy points at 4,500. That's fine. Not like a huge priority. And then Jalen Smith is 5,000. We've got him at 31. Like, they both project well, but these are the kind of slates where you really need players to absolutely crush their tags, because we have players that are going to be so cheap going off. So yeah, neither a big priority, but maybe both in play now.
Yeah. So, and honestly, I'll see what ends up happening if I run once I run lineups to update for this. But considering the price points, I might even just end up foregoing a lot of the Pacers guys just to wait to get better value later on in the slate. Also, could you do me a favor, Jordan? Because I saw that we had a message in chat from, who was it? It was Rosso Music. He said he left a super chat last show that they didn't answer. Josh, a little rusty. He's coming back from vacation. He was sick. He's rich now. He just won $80,000 in the MMA tournament before he left. So he's like, what do I need to answer Rosso Music super chat for? I've got you covered. So Jordan, send that to me so I could get that answered, and some other super chats we have sitting here right now. First, Sir Ruin of House Roundhead. He says, Neil, are the Roughnecks still the best team in the XFL? This is not where I thought we were going to start the show. Are the Roughnecks still the best team in the XFL? That's an XFL team named the Roughnecks?
Oh yeah. That's
God,
the Roughnecks. Yeah, they are. It's between the Roughnecks and DC pretty clearly. I think I'm still going to go. I really dislike DC because they have Greg Williams. It's probably actually DC is probably the best team in the XFL. See my new, I'm wearing my new San Antonio Brahmas hat, by the way.
You have a lot of, you were wearing a new XFL hat yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, also.
Yeah, I had them delivered together because you got to pay for shipping, right? So you might as well get a couple hats.
Did you get anything? Do they sell XFL flannels?
Not that I know of.
All right, they should get on that. It seems to appeal to 50% or so of their audience. So Sir Ruin House of Roundhead wanted to know, Neil, are the Roughnecks still the best team in the XFL? You said no, you went with DC. And then he followed up. He said, I was at the game on Monday night. I happened to be at Wizards Celtics last night. Saru and House of Round had interest in a lot of sports going all the way
out there. Yeah.
A couple of super chats here related to DK tiers, one from Michael Pavlik and then another one from Hannah Banana. So we'll answer these. For DK tiers, these are my favorite options tier by tier. Tier 1, I currently have Giannis. Joel Embiid could be a really interesting one, though, because there is a scenario where James Harden sits and Joel Embiid plays, and Embiid would look really good. But for right now, it's going to be Giannis, particularly in the absence of Chris Middleton. I would call Giannis definitely the safest play of tier 1. Embiid more of a GPP type option. Tier 2 for me is pretty clearly Domantas Sabonis. Tier 3 is Kawhi Leonard, with the caveat that James Harden is in this tier. If James Harden plays and Giannis sits, if James Harden plays and Embiid sits, the answer would be Harden. But for right now, I have it as Kawhi in tier 3. Tier 4, it's Ja Morant by a mile. We've got Ja Morant in there, and I think we're going to start to see the minutes restriction come off of Morant a little bit here. So I like getting to Giannis, why do I keep saying Giannis? I like getting to Morant in tier 4. Tier 5 for me is Josh Giddey. And then tier 6 for me, tier 6 is pretty split. There's a number of guys that project very similarly. Spencer Dinwiddie, De'Aaron Fox, Mikal Bridges. I got to slightly more of Fox than the other two, but we're splitting hairs here. I think all three of them are strong options. So to recap, if I was just going one in each tier, tier 1, Giannis, tier 2, Sabonis, tier 3, Kawhi, tier 4, Ja Morant, tier 5, Josh Giddey, tier 6, De'Aaron Fox. So I hope Hannah and I hope Michael, that helps you guys build out your lineups. Some super chats here. This coming in from Robert Kermutula. Robert wants to know, who are my top 5 favorite plays for FanDuel cash? So let me refresh to see if the ownership is updated. And if not, then I'll just look at the lineups I've built. And based on that, some of the popular players I have the most exposure to, I'll be giving out those as some cash game options. So here we go. FanDuel cash, and a lot of fairly popular players today. But I would say you want to play THT, Talen Horton-Tucker in cash. I think you want to play Ja Morant in cash today. I think you want to play Nasir Little in cash. I think you want to play Giannis in cash. I would call those 4 for sure. And then I guess Aldama's popular enough too that I'll add him to the mix. Aldama projected for 34% ownership. Now there's going to be other players that are really strong cash options that open up as players get ruled out. But as things stand now, Little, THT, Santi Aldama, Ja Morant, Giannis. Good luck tonight, Robert. And then here it is from Rosso Music. Rosso is playing the late 2-game slate. Was wondering the 2 favorite payoffs and 2 favorite paydowns. Let me look at the late slate. This is easy. I could just select the 10 p.m. late slate, and I could just run some lineups here with the projections that I have for the full slate. And update, by the way, from the Grizzlies, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr., Tyus Jones remain doubtful. One of the other reasons, too, that I think we're going to see extended minutes out of Ja Morant, and not just extended minutes, but extended role while he's on the court.
Big time.
This seems to me a perfect kind of whirlwind of events for Ja Morant, right? He rested last game. He's going to be back today. A bunch of guys are out on the team. And now also, I just expect his minutes to start trending up as we get closer to the playoffs. His price is kind of still at its floor. So Morant, really, really good option today. And that injury news kind of bears that out. Now, to answer the question that we got from Ross on Music, because those lineups just finished crunching for me, he wanted to know, to reiterate, 2 favorite pay-ups and 2 favorite pay downs for the late slate. All right, what did I get to here? Sort by the exposure. So in terms of pay downs, I would say Keon Johnson and Nasir Little. As far as pay ups, Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, with a shout out to Karl Anthony Towns. I think Cat, super sneaky play today, Neil, because I don't know that people realize that his minutes have not been all that limited since coming back. Have you taken note of this?
I haven't actually looked at his minutes. I did notice, so I went to his first game back, and I noticed that he was on the court a lot more than I expected him to be.
First game back, he played 26 minutes. Second game back, he played 32 minutes. He only plays 33 minutes per game for the season. To me, if he plays 33 minutes per game for the season, he played 32 minutes last game. This is essentially an unrestricted Cat who's just way priced down.
Yeah, what's his price tag right now?
Yeah, so we have Karl Anthony Towns on DraftKings is priced at 8,000, and he's somebody I'm getting exposure to. And then over on FanDuel, we've got Cat priced at, where'd he go? Why can I not find him?
I can't find
it would help fight all the teams. Like, there we go. He's $8,100 on FanDuel. I think he's an overlooked option on both sides. I think that the any kind of injury, minutes concerns, these are in the past to me. I think Cat, large field tournaments, I wouldn't go out and play him in a cash game or anything. I think he's somebody to get to.
I like that call. He's power forward only on DraftKings. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that with Cat.
Which makes sense.
So that's why I couldn't find it. It does make sense. Yeah, he's playing power forward most of his minutes. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, he's down at 8,000. If you put him in for, I'm putting him in for 33 minutes. You'd have a projection of 41, which isn't on this slate. That's not like it's a pretty stars and scrubsy kind of slate. So that doesn't make him stand out. But at 3% ownership, yeah, sign me up.
And the other thing too, also, is nobody's playing him. Like, and by the way, when I say nobody, like super low ownership, Cat is 3% owned on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he is 2% owned.
Yeah.
That's really low ownership for a guy, earlier in the year or at any other point in time. If you saw an $8,000 Karl Anthony Towns on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel, he would be uber chalk. The reason he isn't is because of this layoff. And I just don't think it's a concern looking at some of the recent results for him. I mentioned the minutes last game. So I'm going to be playing Cat in tournaments. His usage has been pretty substantial too, his first couple of games. 2 games back from Karl Anthony Towns, his usage rate is 31% in those games. Tournament play. I like getting to him.
Yeah, that's a good call.
And looks like we are caught up on the super chats that Jordan sent me. Let me go back through chat and make sure we didn't miss anything else. Looks like we did not. I'll also check Discord to see what we have for questions in there. And if you guys aren't in Discord, one of the perks being a Stokastic Platinum member. So if you guys want to be in there, sign up for the baseball promo. We've got MLB is back, and that will get you into our Discord as well. But questions that we have in the Discord channel right now, none. So we are all caught up. We're all good on all of that. Let's look at some of the most popular plays that we have of the entire slate tonight, Neil. Right now, we have a handful of guys projected to be uber popular. We'll start with DraftKings and we'll talk about FanDuel. And I'm curious to get your take on these guys relative to their ownership and how we're rating them out in the boom bust tool, because Keon Johnson is projected for 48% ownership on DraftKings. We've got John Morant projected for 47%. I've mentioned before, I love Morant today. I think he's a really strong pay up option. All things being considered, players not expected to play, Morant being in, and then also I think his minutes going up. I think this chalk is warranted. But what do you think? What are you going to be doing with Morant in large field tournaments when he is projected to be this popular?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be close to the field. In my latest crunch, I have 93%. I'm going to probably cut back on that a little bit, but he's definitely good chalk. You look at the boom bust, 45% ownership, 37% chance of being optimal, and 63% chance of putting up a boom score. Just everybody else who has much talent for the Grizzlies is out, including his backup point guard. So he should, I agree with you. I think he's going to play extended minutes here. He should have all the usage in the world. And he's down at 9,000. So I like Ja quite a bit. It's rare that you find a player who projects as well point per dollar as he does in the 9,000 plus range. So yeah, Ja looks like good chalk to me at around 45%. I'm probably going to be close to the field.
And we've got a super chat here from Jorge Giacomi, and then we'll go back and we'll talk about the other super popular player on DraftKings, which is Keon Johnson. But Jorge wants to know, where did the question? Here it is. Do we like anybody from Indiana versus Milwaukee today? And then worst chalk players for the slate. So for me, I am going to be playing Giannis. Talked about it before, Jorge. I'm not sure if you were here at the top of the show, but this is a slate where there are so many players that are on the injury report. Went through the rundown of them earlier. Most notably, Embiid is questionable, Harden's questionable, LeBron is questionable. Durant, I'm going to kind of write that one off because I think he's playing, but Jalen Brunson is questionable, Kyle Anderson's questionable, Norman Powell's questionable. So there's a massive opportunity for value to open up later on in the day. And if that happens, you would just want to have more Giannis in the early slot. So I like getting to Giannis. And as things stand right now, I'm actually kind of leaning towards only playing Giannis from the first game and foregoing the other pieces because I do think there's a chance for better value to open up. Oh, sorry. I'll add a little bit of exposure to Drew Holiday too in the absence of Middleton. Nothing crazy, but a little bit of Holiday. I'm going to be getting to Giannis as a pay-up option, but I think I'm going to be foregoing Jordan Nwora and a lot of the Pacers value just because I think better value is going to open up later. So for me, I get that he projects well for us right now, but I think Jordan Nwora is a bad piece of chalk just because there are value plays that are going to open up later. I don't know who they are, but there are going to be ones that I'm going to want to get to over Jordan Nwora at some point today.
That makes it. So I have cut back significantly on our projection for Jordan Nwora to get to less. I'm still going to play some Jordan Nwora because I think he's still a good point per dollar option. But yeah, I'm definitely cutting back there. I think that, if you're playing, I have no issue with cutting Jordan Nwora out of your player pool. I'm not trying to completely cut him out, but I think there's a good case to be made for doing exactly what you're doing, just cutting him out because he's not in there as a top projected play. He's in there as a very good point per dollar play. And like you said, we might get more. And similar with Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, we actually have projecting really well point per dollar right now. I also cut back on Jalen Smith. I'll let other people lock in that roster spot, and I'm going to try to be underweight to the field.
And then as for the other part of Jorge's question, which is nice because it actually kind of ties into what it was that we're starting to talk about anyway, in terms of the worst chalk players on the slate. And I brought up Jordan Nwora, but as for all these other really popular players that we have for today, and I know Jorge is asking us about DraftKings, we'll look at FanDuel afterwards as well. THT now projected for 47% ownership, Keon Johnson 43%, Santi Aldama's come down a little bit to 30%. Is there anybody else that's really popular that you consider to be bad chalk on DK?
So Keon Johnson, we've actually moved him down a little bit. I think it's risky chalk. I'm not going to call it bad chalk, but at 5,000, I'm not sure that the minutes are completely secure with Keon Johnson. He came off the bench last time. He played 31 minutes. We're projecting him to actually play a little bit more because they're a little bit more shorthanded. He's probably going to pick up some minutes. I feel like it's just a little bit risky, but he looks good in the boom bust tool. 43% owned. We have him at a 48% chance of being optimal, 64% chance of booming. He is not a player that I'm trying to lock in, but I wouldn't call him bad chalk. No, I think I'm probably going to be close to the field there. THT worries me a little bit at 6,900, 47% projected ownership, 59% chance of booming, 43% chance of being optimal. I think I'm probably going to get underweight to the field on THT. We've seen him fail so many times when he projects well. The boom bust tool kind of tells the story. He's just a little bit over-owned at 47%. So I'm probably going to be slightly underweight to the field on THT. I think Aldama looks fine. Nwora looks fine to me. Kevin Knox at 26% ownership. That scares me a little bit. Luckily, that's the last game of the night, so I don't have to make any big moves on Kevin Knox right now, but my guess is I'll be underweight to the field.
Yeah, so at least as of now, I don't mind having a lot of exposure to Portland because they're all cheap and they're very, very easily maneuverable pieces. So this is one of those things where a lot of these guys project well as points per dollar plays as is. And if I get exposure to Keon Johnson, I get exposure to Kevin Knox and these kind of guys, a couple of things happen. Number one, if I just end up playing them, I don't hate it. And there's also the possibility that, we get an hour from now, Joel Embiid and James Harden are out, and then we just swap those guys to other pieces anyway. It does help that in the last spot of the game. So I'm cool with loading up on those guys. With that in mind, that's why I'd rather play a chalk Keon Johnson than say a chalk Jordan Nwora.
Yep, I feel the exact same way.
And we've got some questions coming into Discord, so we'll look at those in a second. But I don't want to overlook FanDuel either, Neil. So pull up the FanDuel side of the boom bust tool, and let's look at some of the most popular players for FanDuel purposes. Is there anybody that's picking up a ton of ownership for FD that you consider to be overowned? Because there's some super popular pieces there as well, and most of the same owned players that we're talking about over on DraftKings. So to read it off for you guys as Neil pulls up that info, THT is projected for 70% ownership on FanDuel. Chris Dunn 55%, Nasir Little 42%. Got Giannis at 34%, Morant 31%, Walker Kessler 31%. So of those really popular players on FanDuel, any of those ones that project out as being overowned?
Yeah, I mean, THT project for 70% ownership, as you said, 63% chance of being optimal, 65% chance to move. So we got negative leverage scores on actually all of THT, Chris Dunn, and Giannis. I think I wouldn't play Chris Dunn and THT together in a lineup here, most likely. I think they're both a little bit they both scare me at just 70% THT, 55% Chris Dunn just strikes me as being too high. So I'm with the boom bust tool here that they are both just a little bit over-owned there. Clearly the range of outcomes for both of them, they both have huge upside. So I wouldn't completely X them out necessarily, but they scare me at that level of ownership. So I think I'd be underweight to both THT and Chris Dunn. Giannis, 34% ownership feels a little bit high, but probably fine for Giannis in this spot. Keon Johnson down at 26% ownership on FanDuel and likely to play the minute. So I kind of like that as well. Yeah, and Lee is messaging me. THT and Dunn change with the Olenek news being out. Yeah, that's gave them a boost for sure. They still scare me just because we've seen them fail in this kind of spot so many times already. Just scares me when the ownership gets that high. And Lee also messaged me to point out that Kevin Knox played 32 minutes in the last game. And as you said, they're definitely tanking it. Like they're not trying to win games at this point. So I understand that Kevin Knox is just not somebody that I think I can count on to put up a big fantasy score, even in significant minutes. Maybe I'm underestimating his fantasy points per minute. I don't think of Kevin Knox as being like a surefire. Yeah, 0.77 fantasy points per minute this season. That's fine, but I don't think that it's like a guaranteed thing with Kevin Knox.
Here's my favorite information about Kevin Knox. If you guys have ever checked out 538, they do these player projections and they do real life value of the players. It'll be, hey, this guy projects to be worth 70 million over the next 5 years. This guy is projected to be a role player worth 12 million in aggregate. Kevin Knox was so bad when he was on the Knicks that he broke their model, and they had the fair market value for him at something like negative $85 million. It's like if it was so their algorithm printed out basically Kevin Knox is so bad that he should buy the team if he wants to play and give himself playing time. So that's always how I think about Kevin Knox, is that old projection for him on 530.
But I guess that doesn't really matter for a team that is tanking, and like all that we care about is fantasy points per minute. And he's actually better than I thought he was in terms of fantasy points per minute at 0.77. We're projecting for 0.87, getting extra usage tonight, and obviously a great matchup with Sacramento. So maybe the 25.5% ownership is about right on Kevin Knox. Just feels a little bit icky because I don't think he's a good basketball player.
I don't think so either, and I'm playing him in DFS because Portland. You know who is also a bad basketball player on Portland? Every single player that they have, every single player they have active today, basically.
Really?
Like Shaedon Sharpe is, I think, a serviceable. Oh, okay. Kawhi Leonard is out tonight.
Okay.
Well, there we go. That's actually really significant news, and nobody needs to hear about my bullshit making fun of how shitty the Portland Trailblazers are, because we got Kawhi Leonard not playing tonight to talk about, and this is a biggie. This game locks. We got time. So this game locks in 1 hour and 25 minutes, but no Kawhi Leonard. And also going to be pretty significant now is what ends up happening with Norman Powell. So Norman Powell being questionable on the injury report, like I didn't think we were going to have to think about Norman Powell really at all. I still assume he's going to be on some sort of minutes restriction because he hasn't played for a little bit, but there's other value that could certainly open up if he doesn't end up playing. But let's look at the Clippers now. When's the last time Norman Powell played, by the way? About a month ago. March 2nd, he hurt his shoulder. Assuming he comes back today, even with Kawhi out, if we end up seeing Powell in there, I don't think we're getting any more than, say, like 25, 26 minutes out of him, something like that. But what are the implications of just this injury report in general? Because there's no Paul George. Marcus Morris is out because he's also bad at basketball, and the team's trying to keep him away from playing basketball. No Kawhi Leonard. Are we loading up on Russell Westbrook now? Are we going to have to do this to ourselves?
I really don't want to, but maybe. I mean, I would say loading up. Like, I don't think Russell Westbrook's going to project for like 50 fantasy points now, but he's going to be somebody who's going to project well, I think. 77. So he's with Kawhi in at 36 fantasy points. He's probably going to project for like, what would you guess, 43, 44 at 7,700, which is going to be a very strong play.
Let me look.
I'm trying to see if there's any value that really like Batum's up at 5,100. So like Batum is more playable, but I don't think he's going to become a really big priority for me. It's tough to really know what to do. I was thinking Norman Powell. I guess we've got him in for 27 minutes and 27 fantasy. You think that's high? You think there's no way he gets there?
No,
if he starts, would you play Norman Powell?
I would need more information, right? I need to hear one of those reports that he's not restricted.
Yeah.
So
if he starts, I'm going to assume that he's not like that restricted. Like he might be restricted. If he starts, I'm going to assume he's going to play at least like 24, 25 minutes.
And one thing, because I'm looking at the on-off court numbers, there's such a limited sample size of Russell Westbrook on the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George off the court. So for reference, we've seen him play 46 minutes with the Clippers with no Paul George and no Kawhi Leonard, 31% usage rate, 46.77 DraftKings points in those minutes. Let's try to rig this a little bit. What if we go to the Lakers and we take LeBron and AD off? I know this isn't an apples to apples comparison. By the way, Norman Powell is available to play today.
Yep.
But I'm curious because I don't think this is the worst comparison in the world. Russell Westbrook's minutes when he played without LeBron and AD. You think that's decent enough as a baseline to get more of a sample size?
That's probably fine.
All right. What do we got here? He was pretty good as a fantasy producer this year. Russell Westbrook played nearly 500 minutes with the Lakers with LeBron and AD off the court this season, 34.6% usage rate, just over 50 DraftKings points per 36 minutes, came out to 47.5 FanDuel points per 36 minutes. Yeah, I think I'm going to be loading up on Russell Westbrook today.
What's his price tag on FanDuel?
All right, so I can't imagine he's that expensive either. He's been like in that high 7, low 8K range. He is 7,700 on DK. FanDuel, we've got Westbrook at 7,900. Yeah, I'm going to have him projected for north of 40 fantasy points. I think Westbrook's a really strong option to get to.
So on DraftKings, we have updated our projections on DraftKings. We've moved Russell Westbrook up to 41 fantasy points at 7,700, which makes him a strong point per dollar play. But this is a slate where I don't think that's like I'm not jamming him into more than 50% of my lineup type of play. It's like he's going to be in my player pool. Maybe I'll have 20% Russell Westbrook. It's just a slate with so much value that he doesn't become like, he's not John Morant. Like John Morant, I still think is a better value. I think you'd agree with that. Yes,
totally agree. Totally agree. So I guess we have to kind of say like, well, what does it mean if I'm going to be playing? I would imagine Russell Westbrook ends up being in 20-ish% of my lineups once I end up updating this again.
Yeah. And I think that's a fair number, man. We moved Norman Powell's projection up to 30.7 fantasy points now. I know Leah's listening to the show because we've been communicating. It sounds like you have slight disagreement, at least with Lee, in terms of just Powell's minutes here.
Well, we just don't have the information yet, right? He hasn't played in a month.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say because I think
starting.
We just got the start. So we also just got the starting lineup and he's not starting. That makes me feel.
Good point. Yeah.
It makes me feel fairly decent that he's restricted today.
Yep.
He's 4,300. So I still think he's playable at that price point.
Oh, he had actually already moved Norman Powell back a little bit. Back to still at 28.5 fantasy points. He's a risky play who could, like, if he does play 24, 26 minutes, he's going to be a great play because he's going to have all the usage. Or I shouldn't say a great play. Even at that point, he'd be a stronger play.
Yeah, so I'm going to refresh this. Jordan, if you wouldn't mind, actually, could you pull up our player projections for the Clippers so we could just go over what the most recent updates are? Because Lee's on top of this. You mentioned it. He's been in communication with you over the course of the show, and Lee's quick. He's quick when he's out here updating projections. So we've got this updated, and let's pull this up on screen so people could see what it is that we're talking about for the Los Angeles Clippers. We have right now Russell Westbrook, no surprise, highest projection on the entire team, actually at 43.26 right now. So one other thing also, Batum being potentially limited coming off the bench, there's only so many dudes that could shoot on this team. That helps Russell Westbrook out a little bit more even. So the Westbrook projection went up once Batum wasn't starting. Batum coming off the bench, we've got him projected for just south of 30 fantasy points. Same for Ivica Zubac, just south of 30 fantasy points. Bones Highland, right around 25. Then we've got Terrence Mann. He's now starting at 24. You mentioned it before, kind of shockingly high price tags for some of these guys. Not that like Terrence Mann or Bones Highland, not to say these guys are like $8,000-$9,000, but Bones Highland hardly plays now. You wouldn't expect to look at his price tag and see $5,000.
Right.
So we've talked about liking Russell Westbrook. Beyond Westbrook, considering these projections they now have updated, who else do you want to get to from the Clippers?
Yeah, it's really so here's Lee's latest. It's super annoying. If the game is close, I don't see them running more than a 9-man rotation unless they're getting blown out. So I agree. It's a really, really tough team to project. So I don't envy Lee in his position. Let me actually refresh for our new projections. But I do think Ivica Zubac is going to be interesting because we know he's one of the few starters remaining for the Clippers. I would imagine he picks up a little bit of extra usage, extra playing time, potentially even just because they have so few bodies at this point. So I'm going to like some Zubac he's 5,400, projection of 28.5. And I think there's upside for more from Zubac if he does get significant minutes. The usage should be there. Russell Westbrook. Ooh, did we move him up to 43 fantasy points? So that's
that was it, which it was something I was saying before is Norman Powell likely being somewhat limited and coming off the bench. It helps Russell Westbrook. There are not that many high usage guys on this team. Like Covington's going to be in the rotation. You know, we're going to be getting these Batum minutes. These are not guys that shoot nearly as much as what Powell shoots. Those shots, a lot of them are going to go to Russell Westbrook.
Yep, absolutely. So, I mean, Russell Westbrook does look even better. And do you think what do you think his ownership comes in at? My guess is the ownership comes in up a bit because that game is not till 8 o'clock Eastern. So he's probably I think the ownership will get there. We got this news early enough, but still probably not going to be it. My guess is the field's going to be around 20% Russell Westbrook. Maybe I'll end up north of that, at least a little bit. I think Zubac's probably going to go a little bit under owned. Like he's not going to project all that well, but I think the range of outcomes expands a little bit here. So I kind of like Zubac's. I don't know what to do with Norman Powell just because I really don't trust the minutes. But if he does get minutes at 4,300 with additional usage, he should look good. We've got him projected for about 11% ownership. My guess is I'm going to be close to that, maybe even slightly under. Bones Highland still doesn't project all that well. He's not in the starting lineup, so probably not going to play big minutes in what should be a close game. Batum, I still don't really want to play. Terrence Mann starting is pretty interesting to me. I think I'll get to some Terrence Mann at least. We've got him projected for 24 fantasy points in 29 minutes. He's at 4,600. I think I actually like him. I think he's got upside for more there. Not playing Eric Gordon at 5,500. What do you think of Mason Plumlee? Probably don't need him on this slate.
No, especially because of the positionality. You can only play him at center. That really limits how much I would want to consider him.
Which is also true of Zubats. So do you think you're going to get to any Zubats?
I'm rerunning lineups right now. I wouldn't be surprised if I get to him a little bit, but it wouldn't be a significant amount.
Okay. Yeah, I don't look at, to be clear, I'm not going to get to like a ton of Zubats either. I'm just trying to get him. We've got him projected for 0.5% ownership. I'm just trying to get him in a few lineups.
Yeah, so that is going to cover the unexpected news from the Clippers. I see that we have a bunch of super chats coming in and some questions in Discord, so I want to make sure that we answer all of those. But one thing before we do that, I want to tell you guys about the current deal at Bet365, because there is not going to be an easier way for you guys to help build your bankrolls. If you've not taken advantage of this offer yet, you should be taking advantage of Bet365, because when you sign up at Bet365 and you place a deposit, $10, you bet $1 Bet365, and it pays out $365 in bonus bets, no matter what happens in that $1 bet that you have. You just have to put in a $1 bet. Also, unfortunately, this is only available in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, or Virginia. But if you're in one of those states, or if you live close to those states, there are these things called cars, Neil. You take it, you drive over the border, you make a little deposit, and it's going to help you make some money here over at Bet365. So New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, Virginia, those are your states that the book is currently operating in. $1 bet, $365 in bonus bets. Guys, take advantage of this offer. If you or somebody you know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let's get back to the go ahead.
I just see TTID Forever, and I just want to reiterate, TTID Forever asks, should we fade the first game? And I think you and I are in agreement that we're both going to play some Giannis.
Yep.
I'm going to have a little bit of Jordan Nwora. I'm going to have a little bit of Jalen Smith, Isaiah Jackson. Not a ton. I did cut back. I have one lineup of TJ McConnell, whatever, got in there. But for the most part, I'm playing a good amount of Giannis and then trying to get like maybe under the field on Nwora, Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith. Sounds like you are only playing Giannis. Is that true?
I have no exposure to the Pacers, but let's just go position by position with some of the guys we have the most exposure to. I know T. Lee was asking about it in the Discord chat, and then we also got a super chat from, who was it? Somebody wanted to know our top players. Oh, here it was Chris Albers. So Chris Albers left us a super chat, wanted to know our top plays position by position on DK. I've got some lineups run for the Clippers news, so I think that we could address this right now.
Sure.
For point guard for me, my most rostered point guard is still Ja Morant. I don't expect that to change. Keon Johnson looks good, and Russell Westbrook, also somebody I'm getting exposure to at point guard. For yourself, point guard.
Those are my three most rostered point guards.
There we go. Love to see it. So let's move on to shooting guard then. Shooting guard, I still get to a lot of THT. I know he's going to be really popular, but I've got exposure to him right now. He ended up going up for me once Kelly Olynyk was ruled out. And then Keon Johnson also has shooting guard eligibility. So THT, Keon Johnson for me. How about yourself at shooting guard?
Yeah, so I actually still have, Keon Johnson, number one. THT, I still have 63%. So I'm cutting back on that. He might still end up as one of my top three. I'm still going to play a good amount of THT. Norman Powell is actually my third right now. I don't think that I want 40+% of Norman Powell, so I'm cutting back on that. But currently it's Keon Johnson, THT and Norman Powell, they all project really well for us. I'm cutting back on them each actually a little bit, but they're probably still going to end up as my top 3 highest owned.
Yeah, and then small forward THT, I am getting to a good amount of Norman Powell. So I don't know exactly what to do with his minutes. And it's one of those things, and I know you and Lee were messaging about it. I want to see a report. Does he have a minutes restriction? Is he going to play in short spurts? Is he going to play 20 minutes? I think that's something we should have more information on in the coming hour, coming 45 minutes. So Neil and I are going to be sticking around doing the usual post-lock 30-minute show. You guys should stick around for that, and hopefully we'll get more information on Norman Powell. For now, I am getting exposure to Norman Powell, and a decent amount of it could go. If we find out that he's unrestricted coming off the bench, I might end up with him in the majority of my lineups. But at least as of right now, THT is my most rostered small forward. And then beyond him, some other guys being mixed in, mentioned Norman Powell, Nasir Little, Kevin Knox as well. Yourself at small forward?
Yeah, small forward. It's actually, so Kevin Knox is actually my number 1 small forward now, THT and Norman Powell. And as we talked about, Kevin Knox, I'm probably not going to really change that much just because I know I can adjust it later. But I think, he's going to be a fine play. If I ended up with 60% Kevin Knox, so be it.
Yeah, they only have 9 active players today. So
Right.
I agree. I don't think it's the end of the world. Power forward for me right now, Giannis, Santi Aldama, Nasir Little, Kevin Knox as well. Yourself at power forward?
Yeah, Santi Aldama, Kevin Knox, and Giannis. I actually don't have much Nasir Little right now. I was noticing that.
So I don't have as much of him as I have of some of the other Portland or some of the other value plays, but I had 25% of Nasir Little.
I've got 10%. Like, I don't have none, but
center for me right now. Giannis also a center eligibility, but other guys, Walker Kessler now, Santi Aldama, Drew Eubanks. Big one to also look out for. I might get to a real good amount of Joel Embiid if James Harden is ruled out in Embiid play. So something else to keep an eye on. But center, who are you playing the most at that position?
Yeah, Aldama, Giannis, Eubanks. Yeah, that's a good point. And the reverse is also true. If Joel Embiid ends up out and James Harden is in, we're probably going to play a lot more Harden. That's just something that right now they both project fine, but not getting to a ton.
All right, let's get these lineups updated here, and we'll start to answer some more of the outstanding super chats and questions we have in Discord. Lippy says that he hates playing Chris Dunn. Talk him off of him on FanDuel. I think he's a little over-owned on FanDuel, but I think he's fine to get exposure to. And then we had another question here from Analyze Risk Trade, Holiday or Ivy. I prefer Drew Holiday to Jaden Ivey. Yourself?
Yeah, no Chris Middleton today. Me too.
Yeah, that's that, and neither of them are priorities.
Yeah.
For me, I answered Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday I think is the better play over Jaden Ivey, but I have less than 10% of Drew Holiday.
I have one lineup. I'm only playing 30, but I have one Drew Holiday lineup.
All right. Export these lineups so they are good to go, and upload. Any other Discord questions? We are caught up on. Oh, one more from Lippy. Thoughts on Claxton on FanDuel? There's other centers I like more. Claxton is playable, but not somebody who ended up popping up all that meaningfully for me. If I look at my center exposures for FanDuel purposes, I had Claxton. If my computer will let me scroll down. Here we go. So Claxton on FanDuel at $7,600. Good matchup against the Houston Rockets, but he's 15% owned. I ended up coming in underweight to that in the last run that I did on Nick Claxton. So not really all that much interest in him relative to his ownership. Let's look at some of the super chats we have here. And Jordan has sent me a bunch of them. So let's try to bang these out here. Ones that we haven't answered yet. We have from Cheers Brew, top DK cash game plays. So now that the dust is settled a little bit here with some of the injury news that at least we're going to get prior to the slate, I feel really good about saying THT, John Morant, Keon Johnson. I would say Russell Westbrook now as well. Those are the players that I'd really say are the core guys for cash that I think you should be building around there. The next question we have is from King fucking Dash. He wants to know who are the 3 priority centers for FanDuel cash. Wait, how many cash game lineups are you playing here? You need 3 of them for FanDuel at center. So one of them is, to me, if you're playing one guy at center, cash FanDuel is Walker Kessler. He's his fantasy game is more beneficial on FanDuel relative to DraftKings because the defensive stats. Guy has been just a god blocking shots around the rim. So him, I don't even want to give you somebody else. So we've got Santi Aldama has power forward and center eligibility, I believe, on FanDuel at $4,400. Just play him in the power forward spot, though. Aldama. And yeah, just play Walker Kessler in cash. Play Walker Kessler in cash. Don't even think about anybody else. King fucking Dash. You're playing Walker Kessler in cash today. Jorge wants to know top 3 players that you'll have on 50% of your lineups. So if I look at all of my lineups overall, the players I get the most exposure to right now are Ja Morant, Keon Johnson, and THT. Who are your top 3 most exposed players, Neil?
Currently, it's Santi Aldama, Keon Johnson, and Kevin Knox. But again, that's partially Keon Johnson, Kevin Knox. I'm not doing it to these guys because I can change later. I also currently have 60% Giannis, and I'm debating whether I really want 60% Giannis on a slate this size, but I might just roll with it.
And the other super chat we have here is from Cully Poston. Is Covington in play now? A little bit too thin of an option for me. If you're playing the 2-game slate later, cool. If you're playing like one of those really short slates, you're playing Showdown, that's also cool. For the full slate, there's so many good value plays, and there's going to be more that open up. I don't have Covington now, and I don't think I'm going to later either.
Yeah, I have 27% Rocco right now, which surprised me. I don't want that much. That's probably because I've been cutting back on some of the better chalk here, and that's more Rocco than I want. I think he's not. We already have the starting lineup, right? So he's not in the starting lineup. Yeah, it's a little bit tough to get. They only have, I believe, 9, I think Lee said, in the rotation. So could see extended minutes, but we only have Rocco in for 20 and a half minutes. So, but if we think Norman Powell is going to play fewer minutes, I think that he's in play. I don't know that he's somebody I don't want 27%. I know that much. I'm going to cut back, but I do think that he's in play.
Got a super chat from Justo who's saying that he's leaning towards going balanced tonight. Thoughts? I think there's a lot of value that's going to be opening up as we go along here.
It depends on what you mean by balance too. Like, is Ja Morant, do you consider Ja Morant balanced? Like, if you want to avoid like the Giannis, the Embiids, assuming Harden's in, I think that's fine. Going balanced in that sense, but you don't want to go full balance on a slate like this where there is so much value.
Yeah, I still consider Morant a pay up option. He is one of the more expensive players on the slate. But yeah, there is definitely some ambiguity there in terms of what we're considering pay up options. But I have a ton of Ja Morant, so I think you should be playing him.
Yeah.
Ja Morant, Giannis for sure. Joel Embiid, somebody else to have exposure to. Westbrook, maybe more we consider a mid range, but no, I wouldn't forego the expensive guys there, Justo. Straight cash homie wants to know Bridges or Westbrook. That is Westbrook for me today.
Me too.
Jonathan
Bridges will
Bennett,
be lower owned, but yeah.
Jonathan Bennett wants to know top low owned plays. Let's see. Who am I getting exposure to that the field is not at the moment? Look at our latest ownership run and refresh this. See if there's any really low owned guys I'm getting to. You get to a certain point too, where there's like 3 minutes to go until lock and news is coming out. I'm just updating my lineups. And, it's funny because I think ownership is really important, but it's also important for me to actually play the guys that I want to play. And sometimes it's hard to balance everything perfectly right before lock when news is coming out that we're not expecting, like Kawhi being out. But let's see. There isn't that much aggressive chalk today either.
Right. Yeah. As far as
Walker Kessler's 15% owned, if that counts. We've also got, by the way, we just got Joel Embiid is in.
Yep. Embiid and Harden both in.
Embiid and Harden are both in. What is Embiid's projected ownership? Embiid's projected for 8% ownership. I'm overweight to that number right now. I would say he's another low owned piece that I like.
What's the number?
8% on Joel Embiid.
That is interesting. I wasn't really thinking about him because I was waiting on the news.
Yeah, so those will be my answers. Obviously, I gave you 2 cents. I'll give you another one that I'm overweight to. Spencer Dinwiddie at 15%. I'm a little bit over on that. That would be another one. Are there any low-owned guys that you're taking shots on?
All right, I'm just running one more crunch here, so let me.
Oh, good.
Sort by...
We've got other ones here, so I'll just move on. Okay. They don't need answers from both of us. They can make do with my information. June, Sosa, Westbrook, or Giddey on FanDuel. I prefer Westbrook. The next question that we have here is Riley Cooper, minutes projection on Conchar. Let me look. John Conchar. I've got Conchar for 26 minutes. That's what I've got for John Conchar. Chris Williams gifted out some YouTube memberships. We appreciate you. Thank you. IMAX, Morant, Claxton, Kennard, or Trey Jones, Sabonis, Batum. First one. Basically, any combination with Morant, it's going to be that side for me. Morant, Claxton, Kennard. Oh, the other one I forgot to mention also. I like Karl-Anthony Towns as a contrarian play. I talked about him earlier. And follow-up, Eric Adkisson. DK, Towns in the flex at the moment. Do you like anybody better 8,000 and under, or already have Westbrook, Ja, and Bridges? No, my answer would be Westbrook, but if you already have Westbrook, then I like Towns. Chris Williams, your Apple guy again. Great show as usual, guys. You're both spot on with your showdown picks. For Minnesota Phoenix, who are your favorite captains for that game, barring news? Hit the like button. Yes, thank you, Chris. If you guys haven't done yet, hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube chat. I have to run lineups for that, Chris, and then I will answer you, but we could do that shortly here, right after lock. Some other questions in Discord. This one from Analyze Risk. Islander Keon Johnson, and then Lapaka. 2v2 FanDuel, Towns and Isaiah Jackson versus Randall and Rui Hachimura. I'll say one. Towns and Isaiah Jackson. I don't love Isaiah Jackson $5,800 on FanDuel, though. But it's the better option of the two. And all right, we are caught up. We hit on all of those questions. Let me just double check the messages Jordan sent me to make sure that nothing else came in. And we didn't. So I'm going to run some of those showdown lineups for Chris. In the meantime, were you able to get your lineups in time there, Neil?
I did. I mean, I submitted what I could. I updated a good amount and I got some lineups in.
I'm not playing a ton of the first game anyway. You know, I've got my Giannis exposure. I've got some Drew. I didn't end up playing anybody from the Pacers. So to me, like, I feel like I could update my lineups 30 minutes from now and I'll feel pretty good about everything.
Yeah, I played some of the Pacers guys, and that was part of what I was trying to do is limit. I ended up with 20% Jordan Nwora, so it was not all that much under the field, which is probably fine. Projects well.
Starting lineup for the Sixers: Harden, Maxey, Harris, Tucker, and Embiid. Uploading some of the projections to run some crunches for our guy, Chris. What are your rooting interests tonight, Neil? What are the players? Who do you need and who are you fading? I've liked doing this as we get into chat. Try to find out our rooting interests so everybody knows where we actually end up standing with everything. Who are the guys that are most important to you today?
I mean, at this point in the playoff race, it's going to be Karl-Anthony Towns, both for DFS and for real life, because he's coming in at 2% ownership. I'm going to be above that on Cat. So it might be Cat. I'm going to have a ton of Keon Johnson. I assume I'm going to be above the field there. John Morant, I'm going to be above the field, I think. So right now, one player that I'm well above the field on is Zach Collins, and I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that or not. I have over 50% Zach Collins, which I think is just a result of some of the other players' projections who I've cut. I don't know if I'm really comfortable with over 50% of 6,400 Zach Collins, but he would probably be my biggest stand right now, at least outside of Cat. And then as far as players I'm fading, all right, let me sort by ownership here.
Yeah, I mean, Cat, what did the final ownership on Cat end up being? I know it was low.
2.5%.
Yeah, 2.5% on DraftKings. And for FanDuel, we have got Cat at 3.6%. People aren't playing him. I'm not saying he's the best play in the world or anything, but I think he's underowned on this slate. And there's a clear upside there. Right? We've seen it a million times with Karl-Anthony Towns. If Karl-Anthony Towns had a big game and I didn't play him tonight, I would feel like an absolute idiot. And by the way, something else that's kind of correlated into that's funny, because I just finished crunching these lineups out for Chris for Showdown. I got to so much Karl-Anthony Towns in Showdown, just my most rostered player by a mile here, most rostered captain and most rostered player in the utility. I actually think, yeah, he showed up in over 90% of the lineups that I ran across the captain and the utility spot. So Karl-Anthony Towns priced down on a 1-game slate. Yes, please. So Cat was the captain I got to the most, followed by Devin Booker. Utility plays I got to the most, mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns, and then beyond him, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Anthony Edwards. This is a really interesting game because it basically is the inverse of what we'd always be looking for in value, right? So you've got the Timberwolves healthy for the second time the entire season. And then on the Suns side of the game, you've got Kevin Durant coming back, who's going to significantly cut into Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Chris Paul. So it's a tough game from that standpoint. Karl-Anthony Towns, the one player I think is clearly underpriced, my favorite pay-up option. But just to reiterate, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, other value, cheaper guys that I ended up getting to. Durant's a little hard to play because I think he's going to be having some sort of minutes restriction. And the cheap guy I got the most of, who also I do not feel great about, but it's just these are the options we have to work with. Josh Okogie. I know that Durant's back, but he's only $4,400 for Showdown. And he is somebody who I think has played well enough to maintain a role where he plays 20 plus minutes. So Okogie was the cheap option that I got to the most. So Chris, I hope that helps you build your lineups. Back to you though, Neil. Did you find out who it is you're fading today?
At first, I want to respond. Javon Watts says too much value stresses me out. Yeah, me too. It's just I love some value. I like to be like, okay, we have some clear great value. The field's not going to get there enough. This is a slate where like the value is just so all over the place. There's so much volatility. It's a little bit tough. But as far as who I am fading, so it's hard because all of the most chalky guys I'm like with or above the field on. Yeah. I might still try. So I've already cut back. As I said, THT, the ownership feels high to me, 41.5%. I've already cut his projection back by 3 fantasy points, and I'm still getting to 47% THT, which is starting to tell me, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't want to be that far under the field on THT. So I'm still like, I'm right with him, right with the field there. I did end up, I guess, where did Jordan Nwora end up? Because I ended up with 20%. I was thinking I was going to get a little bit underweight to the field on Nwora. Now I'm curious where the field actually ended up, if they adjusted enough. I'm a little bit under the field on Nasir Little, so maybe I'll be rooting against him. But of course, there's time before that game starts. Yeah, it's tough. I guess currently I don't have any Isaiah Joe. I'm thinking about adding him to my player pool though. He's coming at 15.5% ownership against Detroit with no Shea. I think it's a little bit risky to full fade him.
Yeah, I'm looking at I'm downloading the CSV right now to see what some of the ownership ended up coming in at. And then I could let you know where Nwora ended up. So we will see that in a second. Why is this so slow to load right now? There we go. It wasn't showing me you know what I'm also really curious about? I didn't play in it, but I want to see the Millie Maker. It was a $3,000 buy-in entry, $1 million to first place. I'm kind of curious to see what the ownership ended up being in that, even though I'm not playing in it, just because I know that that's going to be more concentrated, some of the really chalky plays. So I'm downloading the CSV for that right now.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting.
Here we go. So Jordan Nwora is the most popular player in that. He is 36.5% owned. I think the field too heavy on him there. I understand he projects well right now, but a little bit of an opportunity cost if more players get ruled out later. Although maybe it does help that we did get some of that news and, Embiid and Harden already being in. Giannis ended up being 17.6% owned in the $3,000. Isaiah Jackson at 16.4. So just based on that information, I'm going to guess that Nwora is a little bit over 30% owned in the main GPP.
It's probably a good bet.
Yeah, and people did not get to Giannis.
Interesting.
A little surprising to me.
That is surprising to me too.
Especially with the amount of value that we had come in late there.
Yeah. Which, I don't. If I'm way over the field on Giannis, I don't really mind that.
There are worse scenarios to be in there, and there are worse players to be overweight too.
Jordan Nwora 26% in the big $15 or 18, whatever it is.
Yeah,
now.
18 today. Funny, by the way, funny how far the ownership came down on Jalen Smith. People were all over him last game.
Yep.
And he did exactly what we were expecting, and nobody played him the next day in the same spot. Why will this file not unzip for me?
So here, you want me to go down the ownership in order?
It's opening now. I should have it in a second. My computer's being a massive pain in the ass. It's like, you want ownership? You're on a live show? Go screw yourself. I'm not doing you any favors right here, but it's finally open. Yeah, Nwora 26%, Giannis 15%, Isaiah Jackson 15%, Mathurin at 11%. So not too much ownership in the first game. Nwora's most popular, I should say, but not nearly as popular as he is in the 3,000.
Interesting. Which a lot of people use that as an indication of whether it was a sharp play or not, which I think there's some truth to that, but it's also a different contest.
Yeah. So I think that it's most indicative of, in general, who people are projecting the best.
Yep.
The players that have the best points per dollar projections are going to be higher owned at the higher stakes. Now, with that said, we've got baseball starting tomorrow. I think the field is massively inefficient in baseball at the higher stakes, because you'll see some of these games where it's like, oh, there's a Coors Field game. All right, well, then some of the higher stakes on DraftKings, you'll see the ownership be like, you'll see a Coors Field game be like 50% owned, which should never be the case for a baseball tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's often a place where you can find, like, I kind of like Coors slates because you can just find leverage pretty easily on those slates.
And somebody asked why we're not talking about Brunson. He ended up being ruled in. There's so much value with players getting ruled out that we'll mention right here. Brunson's in. I'm not playing anybody from the Knicks.
Yeah, it makes it hard to prioritize anybody. Like, I was going to have some interest in Julian Randle as a pay up option, but yeah, it's really hard to want to play anybody against Miami in particular.
Yeah, and the other thing too is it's just you got the Knicks players a little bit priced up. Brunson added back into the mix, so I think it really takes away a lot of the appeal to anybody from that game. Also, terrible game environment. Knicks Heat, the total is 225.5, lowest total of the entire slate by a few points.
Really,
next lowest
is the lowest.
What's
we had
that?
Like multiple under 220 yesterday on like a shorter slate. Just surprised to hear how that's the lowest on the slate.
Let me look at yesterday's games. What did we have? We had, the lowest total yesterday was Miami-Toronto at 218.5. Today's lowest, like you said, a little bit higher, but still 225.5. The next lowest total is 228.5 in that OKC Detroit game, 229.5 in Brooklyn, Houston. But that's also, a somewhat high total. But yeah, Miami, New York is not the best game environment. Defenses are both fairly decent as well. You got Brunson coming back from injury after missing time. I don't have interest in him, and he hurts all the other Knicks.
Yeah, he's what's his price? His price had come down a good amount, so like to the point where he's playable. But on a slate like this, he's just not a huge price. Yeah, 7,500 against Miami. We haven't projected for 39 fantasy points, so like pretty strong point per dollar. But we just have so many really strong point per dollar plays on the slate that it's hard to get there.
Super chat from Noah Ronson. There's no questions. He just left us $1. Noah, it did say that this was your first super chat. There's, I guess, some new animations for this in the YouTube chat when somebody leaves their first super chat. If you meant to ask a question, don't leave another super chat. Just throw it into YouTube chat and I will answer. Well, okay, here. He wants to know, can I rerun tiers with all the news? Absolutely. Absolutely, I can. So tiers, give me a second to rerun this. It won't take very long. Look through all these. I know some of this is going to remain unchanged. Tier 1 is already locked. That answer is going to be Giannis now for sure, because we were waiting for, the only thing we were kind of unsure about before was Tier 1, Embiid. Is he going to be without Harden? Is he going to play himself? So Tier 1 would have been Giannis for me, but he's already locked. If you're looking to play somebody in Tier 1 and that's not an option for you anymore, then Embiid would be the next best option. Tier 2 for me still is Sabonis. Tier 3 would have been Kawhi Leonard, but he is out. So now the answer becomes James Harden in Tier 3. Tier 4 remains Ja Morant. Tier 5, Josh Giddey. Tier 6, though, here's a big mix-up. Tier 6 was Spencer Dinwiddie. Or no, Tier 6 was De'Aaron Fox for me in the last run. Now it is Russell Westbrook. Westbrook's available in Tier 6. So that's the guy who gets the big bump there. So if you still have some of those lineups from before, Noah, or if you only played one lineup, swap out Dinwiddie for Russell Westbrook. I think Russell looks really good now.
To answer your question, Larry, so yeah, Fantasy Scripture has updated with the new projections. I guess the timestamp on that is just not updated.
And no more super chats. We've got all of that. Let me go back into Discord and see what we have there. And for Discord, and then we'll start talking a little bit about PrizePicks, and we'll look through some of the PrizePicks top plays of the day. Lippy's leaving us some questions here, as is Lapaka. Oh, no, we answered that one from him. Lippy, thoughts on Bam at 2% owned? I didn't play Bam today. Did you play Bam at all?
I don't believe I did.
And then Lippy wants to know, how many Portland guys am I getting to? In individual lineups, I don't have more than 3.
Same.
Yeah, I don't have anybody with more than, I don't have any lineups with more than 3 players from any one team today. As for individual players, though, in order of exposure that I got to them on FanDuel, it was Keon Johnson 1, Nasir Little 2, Kevin Knox 3. So those were the Blazers that I ended up getting the most of.
To me, it was Keon Johnson. Currently, it is Keon Johnson, Kevin Knox, Nasir Little, and actually Drew Eubanks more than Nasir Little for me currently.
Okay, there we go. And it's going to be a little bit different FanDuel versus DraftKings, but either way, I didn't end up building out any lineups, Lippy, that had more than 3 players. He also adds that he's getting to Walker. Let me see. Walker. I didn't get to him. So I built out 150 lineups for FanDuel, and he's in 3 of them. Jabari Walker.
Yeah, I didn't have any in my 30 on DraftKings.
So the issue with Jabari Walker is I get he played 25 minutes last game, but a lot of it came in blowout time. A lot of it came in guard. Like he played almost the entire fourth quarter of that game.
Does that matter? So that's where I don't know if it matters. Like the game environment with Portland, like they don't care if they win or lose these games. They're just trying to
for
see
whatever reason, teams have their rotations.
I suppose.
And it's like this. Like last game didn't matter either, and still Jabari Walker didn't really play much until garbage time.
Yeah.
And I was keeping very close tabs on that because I had Jabari Walker over 3.5 rebounds at plus money. He finished at 3. And if I remember correctly, he had 0 heading into the fourth quarter. I was like, all right, blowout time for Jabari Walker. And he finished with 3 in that spot. But just considering that, it's hard for me to play Jabari Walker in large field tournaments. It's not to say that random shitty bench guys for Portland can't play decently, but there's so much good value on this. So like, why do I want to roll the dice on Jabari Walker?
I am unsure. Like, I don't think I currently have 0 Jabari Walker. I'm probably not going to get any Jabari Walker. So I'm largely with you. I just think it's so unpredictable in Portland that I kind of think anybody of those 9 who are active is like at least nominally in play here, including even like John Butler. We have projected for 18.5 fantasy points in just under 18 minutes. Like, so I think Jabari Walker is in play, but like I'm probably not getting to him in my 30. If I were playing a 150, I guess I'll phrase it that way. If I were playing 150, I do think I would get to some Jabari Walker.
You ready for some good news?
Yes.
We are 2 minutes into the Bucks game. Giannis has 3 points, 3 rebounds, and an assist.
He's so good.
There we go.
The NBA MVP at your own risk. I guess he's
and Jordan Noir has no stats so far.
I don't love that because I actually like my last crunch. I had been getting to like 10% ish. And then my last crunch right before lock came in at 20% for whatever, and 20% for Isaiah Jackson, which I'm don't love that either.
Yeah, there we go. Let's go Giannis.
Let's go Giannis.
Let's go. I can't believe he was as low owned as he was.
Yeah, 15% in the $18.
Let's go Giannis. Sportswiz says Giannis so handsome for that. Did you ever see that video of Giannis?
I don't know what video you're referring to, but have you noticed that he looks just like his girlfriend or wife or whatever she is now?
No, that was not what I was referring to.
I think he kind of looks like her.
Oh, okay. I'd have to look a little bit closer. But no, there was this really funny video where Giannis was talking about why he can't shoot threes. And his thesis is like, he can't do everything. He's like, I'm handsome, athletic, strong, handsome.
I do know the video.
Yeah.
Was this a commercial? No, it was
no. It was just on his Twitter. He put it up.
Yeah,
great Euro step, handsome, can't shoot. God can't give you everything. So that's the handsome reference.
That is a funny video. Yeah, Isaiah Jackson. Lee pointed out to me Isaiah Jackson 5 points and 1 block in 2 minutes.
There we go. Good start for him as well. I'm going to be rooting against him, but either way, let's go Giannis. The Maharishi left us a super chat, and by the way, Kyle Lowry is just ruled out. That's not going to impact my lineups. But the Maharishi, can you rehash your prioritization of the Clippers? Yes, sir. As of right now, I have the most exposure to Westbrook. I have the second most exposure to Norman Powell, and I don't have a significant amount of exposure to anybody else from the team.
Wait, so what was the question again? Sorry.
Our prioritization of the Clippers. So to me, it is Westbrook 1, Norman Powell 2. And there are other guys, like if you had a lineup with Zubats, if you have a lineup with Terrence Mann, I think that's for sure fine. They just aren't priorities for me. Westbrook 1 and then Powell 2. Although still waiting for Powell news. We find out he's restricted in any significant way. I'm not going to play Powell either.
Yep. So for me, it is Westbrook 1. Agree with you 100% there. Terrence Mann, number 2. I'm going to I think I'm going to get rid of my Robert Covington exposure at this point. I did get to some. We cut back on his projection, so Lee probably telling me don't play Rocco here. So I'm cutting back on my Rocco a little bit. I'm still going to play some Norman Powell and a little bit of Zubats as well.
There we go. Works for me. Now let's talk about PrizePicks. And if you guys haven't signed up at PrizePicks, go ahead and use the link below, because that is going to get you up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit and 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. In addition, we've got great tools over at Stokastic.com, including our Pick'em Pro package, which includes PrizePicks, No House Advantage, and Underdog. So if you guys are in a state that does not have legal sports betting, there's a pretty good chance you have access to PrizePicks, No House Advantage, Underdog, and we have all of them bundled together as a package. When you sign up with that using the link we have below for the first time, you get 50% off, which means you could get access to it for less than $5. Projections for all these Pick'em sites that we have. Let's see what is popping up for us here. I'm uploading. I'm going to the Pick'em Pro page over at Stokastic.com. Let's see what looks good. PrizePicks. And we've also got, I should add, we've got NHL projections in there as well. I'm going to filter for just NBA because we're doing an NBA show.
Smart.
I could read off some of the NHL ones, but I'm probably going to get actually, here's how I know I'm going to get the names wrong. First guy on the list here, no clue how to pronounce his last name.
I already typed in NBA, so I don't see it anymore.
Varhigi, perhaps. Who knows?
Nailed it.
But anyway, him under 3.5 shots on goal. We do have winning 62% of the time. NBA projections, though. So one that looks really good here, if it's still on the board, we are projecting Emmanuel Quickley under points really well on PrizePicks, a line that has not changed, it appears, since Jalen Brunson was rolled in. So there we go. There's something to take advantage of.
Wait, the Guru asked, Zach Oren asked, why not Mann? Just curious. Maybe I didn't mention him. I am playing some Terrence Mann.
So I said that he's not a priority for me. Okay. I said that if you have exposure to Mann, that's reasonable, but I wouldn't go out and load up on Terrence Mann or anything like that.
Yeah, we're only projecting him for 22.5 fantasy points in just under 28 minutes. So he doesn't project extremely well on this slate at 4,600, but I am going to play some.
Oh, I should also shout out that with baseball starting tomorrow, the taco, the discount that you get over on PrizePicks, it's a baseball one. Shohei Ohtani, season-long home runs, though. So if you guys are doing any of the season-long stuff on PrizePicks, they do have Shohei Ohtani. He's been priced down from 34.5 homers to 30.5. But I just talked about quickly. We've got a stale number on him over at PrizePicks. We've actually got him projected 3 points under his point line. We've got him for 10.5 with Brunson in. The line is 13.5. So I like the under on Quickly over at PrizePicks. How about yourself? What stands out?
Well, you just stole my favorite bet on the board. Sorry, I was updating my project. I was going to come back to that one. That was my one pick that I was like, right, well, that's an obvious one. So I'm with you on Quickly. Chris Dunn. So I have concerns about Chris Dunn from an ownership perspective in DFS, but great matchup against Utah, missing several key players in Utah. So I'll take the over on 6 assists from Chris Dunn. Just going to have more usage in a great matchup with San Antonio.
And we just got a question here from Lippy. So a couple questions here from, 3 from Lippy. Oh my God, we're loading up on the messages from Eric Johnson in a Discord chat. First, he says, I think we talked about that one before. So he said, let's ride. I don't know what that was apropos of, but just let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride. Why not?
Broncos country.
And then he wants to know, should
Ramos
I X
country.
out?
Ooh, I should steal that.
Is there anybody cornier than Russell Westbrook?
Russell Wilson.
Oh, well, Russell Wilson. Sorry.
Like, Russell Westbrook, not that corny.
Kind of.
Cat is close. I've talked about this with my Timberwolves fans. Cat is pretty damn corny. I don't think he's Russell Wilson level though. No.
He's rough. And the other thing too is he's so phony.
Yeah.
And it comes across that way as well. Did you see when Richard Sherman was talking about him and said that he wanted to reach out to Russell Wilson to just give him some advice and talking about the stuff he's going on? But he couldn't, because even when they were teammates, the only way to get in touch with Russell Wilson is you have to go through his agent and his publicist.
Yep. I heard that. That's so insane.
I can't imagine.
Your quarterback of all people, like not just a teammate, but it's your quarterback who you like need to be in. I guess not with defensive players necessarily, the quarterback, but that's just such a dick move.
That's what it's like working with Eric.
Exactly. Eric is the exact same way.
Yeah. If you want to talk to Eric, you can't do it without texting his dog first, and his dog has to relay the information from you. You don't just get Eric. You got to go through Duke, who's his publicist. It's a whole big to do. But anyway, Lippy wanted to know, should we X out Xavier Tillman? He kind of sucks. Do I have exposure to Tillman today?
Isn't he? He's questionable, right? Or was he ruled in?
So I wouldn't X out Xavier Tillman. And also, whatever your prior biases or thoughts are on Tillman, there's a ton of guys out. He's listed as probable to play. There's so many guys that are out tonight or expected to be out for Memphis. So we go through Memphis's injury report. No Jaren Jackson Jr., no Steven Adams, no Desmond Bane, no Tyus Jones tonight. We've talked about how much we like John Moran as a result of all that. Xavier Tillman is definitely in play for me today. Not going to be one of my most rostered centers or anything, but I have exposure to him. I would not X him out.
I also have exposure to him.
Yeah, don't X him out. People are saying Giannis is going nuts. Oh boy, he is. 4 minutes into the game, Giannis up to 7.7 rebounds and an assist. Let's party.
Don't mind that. First quarter double-double, maybe?
Could be. Not that far away. I mean, He's 4 minutes in with 7 points and 7 assists. I mean, 7 points and 7 rebounds. And on the other side of the game, I'm happy to report for my own personal reasons. Jordan Nwora, 0 points and 1 rebound.
I'm not happy about that. Well,
you're underweight to him.
Okay. Yeah, I am happy about it.
Not like massively, but you're underweight a little. You're underweight a little. By the way, somebody in the chat telling us that we're going to jinx him. If I had those kind of powers, we don't have those kind of powers. Whatever Giannis does in today's game has no impact on what we're doing, on what we say about him. Zero impact.
I'm not sure about that, Greg. You can't be too confident. Don't risk it, Greg.
Yeah, I promise I'm not that important. I promise I'm not that important. Great start for Giannis, though. Very great start. So let's look at some more PrizePicks props. We talked about quickly there. What else looks good? This is a fairly low number. A little concerned about the blowout, but De'Aaron Fox's over-under for threes is 1.5 at PrizePicks. We've got him projected for nearly 2.5. Great matchup against Portland if the game stays close. One thing that it's probably not going to, but one thing that helps, the game's being played in Portland. It's not like there's a 30-point spread for this game. 13.5.
Yeah.
De'Aaron Fox for the season averages just under 2 threes per game. Last couple of weeks, he's making 2 threes per game. It's a low number, 1.5. I'm going to take the over and side with our projections here. Over 1.5 threes for De'Aaron Fox. I like that prop. He's going to face no defense today.
I got to say, you jinxed your Jordan Nwora fade.
He
scored immediately after you said that he was doing poorly.
But they also took him out of the game.
Okay. All right. Fair.
I think I win that then, right?
Yeah, I think you win that. I'd say that's a net positive for you.
Net positive. He's out of the game. He's out of the game. Isaiah Jackson's out of the game. It's going to be 24 minutes for Isaiah Jackson, 24 minutes from Jalen Smith.
I kind of like this under on Mitchell Robinson, 8.5 rebounds. Minutes volatility, tough matchup with Miami. Yeah, I think 8.5, just a little bit too high of a line for Mitchell Robinson in that matchup.
Yeah, Mitchell Robinson.
With Kevin Love there now, too. Just a really tough rebounding spot.
Just got the Pistons starters, Hayes, Ivy, Livers, Bagley, and Jalen Duren. Somebody I saw in chat had asked us about the fantasy points for Marvin Bagley, being that Bagley's fantasy point total was 28. I actually do like the over on that. Where do we have Bagley projected? Because I know I've got him projected over that. 28.5. You've got him for over 30. I've got him for over 30. I think that's a good shout out for, let me give somebody credit in chat. Wayne's World. Yeah, Wayne's World fantasy points. He said over under for Bagley's 28.5. Hit the over on that. Shout out to Wayne's World.
I like that
Good
over.
Call.
What do you think of him as a DFS play at OKC? It's kind of an interesting spot for Bagley.
Too many good plays.
Eligibility. Yeah. Hard to prioritize him, but I think he's one of those guys who's in play at 1% ownership against OKC.
Let's see. What do I have for Bagley? He's also really expensive.
So, I mean, yeah, that's why he's 1% owned, but
6,800 on DK, 7,000 on FanDuel. By the way, also goes to show if you guys are believers that the pricing algorithm is correct on DraftKings and FanDuel, no way should Bagley have an over-under of 28.5 fantasy points over on PrizePicks. Just another data point to be in favor of being over on Bagley.
Yeah.
And we've got some super chats here. So let's answer these, and then we'll head out for the night. James Hood, is Kevin Huerter a good pivot off of THT on FanDuel? Not for me.
Yeah, I don't think I'm getting to. I guess I'm not playing FanDuel.
Shikari Mfood, Towns and Eubanks, or Santi Aldama and Butler. That is Towns and Eubanks for me.
Me too.
And then we have a question here from James Magruder. 85 or 100 for utility on DK. He already has Russell Westbrook. All right, 8,500 or under. That's going to be Towns for me.
8,500 or under. He already has Westbrook.
Yeah.
And that's at util?
Yep. Oh, actually, it's
Josh Giddey.
So for me, it actually is De'Aaron Fox. But on way ownership, I really like Towns as a GPP play. So Towns is my answer. Aldama and Butler or Town. Oh, so that was the same super chat twice. And then James Magruder follow-up, 5,500 for utility on DK. So another utility question. Let's see, 5,500 or under.
It's got to be Keon Johnson, right?
Yeah, it's Keon Johnson. Keon Johnson, if you already have Keon Johnson, then Chris Dunn. If you already have Keon Johnson and Chris Dunn, then Nasir Little. If you already have all three of those, then Xavier Tillman. Just keep going down the list until we finish the show.
Yeah.
Just keep going down.
Good way to end the show. Just name players under 5,500.
Yeah, just name all the guys as they project in order. And that does it for us. Final stat line in the first quarter for Giannis Antetokounmpo. 3 minutes left in the first quarter. Our guy has 11 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 assists. LFG. Let's go. Get it done, Giannis. We love to see it. Everybody who stuck around and watched, we appreciate you guys. If you could help us out just a little bit, this is the easiest thing you can do. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, helps keep our content free. I hope you guys have a great night. Good luck tonight. See you back here tomorrow.
You